Welcome to episode 26 of It's Server Time. We've got the usual suspects here lined up. Their mugshots are right there in front of your faces. We've got Mix, we've got Note, we got Pronogo, and we got myself, Mauisnake. We're going to be going over a lot of what happened at Blast Spring Groups. We're going to be talking about the future in both the form of future tournaments and maybe the future of Counter-Strike. Wink, wink. Maybe that's m0NESY. Maybe he is the future of Counter-Strike. Or maybe it's a team that I like, and I'm just going to go right into this. I'm going to go right into Big. I think they're the future, guys. I think they are the future of being a team that's going to be a fringe top 5 contender.
Okay, you got me there.
They're not. Okay, I'll just put it out there. I've been pretty high on Big for a while. I think, well, for a while being ever since the Faven move happened. And I'm just going to say, I think that what they showed at Blast was more or less what I expected. And I want everybody to remember that they were basically a round away from beating FaZe and taking them down. And everybody's putting FaZe as one of the teams that should be a top 5 team. So okay, yeah, this is a little self-serving, but what do you guys have to say about Big?
I mean, I like the way they looked in the matches that I saw from them. Their T sides look like they could use some work, on a few maps at least.
Nuke, especially
for sure.
Ancient.
Yep. Ancient and Nuke were definitely the two that were the most egregious. But no, I actually do kind of agree with you. I wasn't very high on them until I saw them play FaZe and Astralis, but I actually think that they have a lot of potential. They just need still a little, like, I would say probably 2 more months before they can really start consistently beating some of these top teams.
Definitely seems a lot better consistently overall. I'm really glad that they kind of took care of business against Astralis both times. It wasn't really close, just 2 clean 2-0s. Then obviously you had closer matches against FaZe and EG. But yeah, I mean just the 2 Astralis matches, they look really good, close to beating FaZe, and just seeing Big just take care of business like that, which I feel like has been not something they've been doing for the longest time, the past year or so, was really inspiring to see.
I like the fact that they can throw many nades in a single round. I think that's pretty good for Big. They got that down. I mean, they've always been an interesting team just because they're one of the teams that historically haven't really been able to get to the top, but they don't. It's not like what they're lacking is the same thing that all the other teams are lacking. They're people have called them budget Astralis in the past when Astralis was on their tear. Funny to see them obviously overtake Astralis at this event. I'm really curious about Mauisnake's, you're inflating the stock, dude. You're trying to send them to the moon. I'm just wondering, is there maybe a little word we could whisper in the back of your mind there? Is it online? Online. Can we say that? That Surson looks like he's been handed chicken nuggets this whole game, dude. He's cruising. He's got his Diet Coke or whatever the kids are saying now. He's
just drinking Coke. Yeah, that's the phrase. But I'd say that's fair that it's online. But if the HLTV top 20 list taught me anything, we have to count online also.
We go.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a little stab at it. What we did last show. But no, I think that Surson's level right now is good enough that I could safely say he's a top 4 opper. I don't know, ZywOo and Simple are definitely better than him. I'm not even sure who that third is, but he could be third.
But he's fourth.
Yeah, but he's fourth. But he's fourth. Exactly. Who would you put as better than Surson based off of the form you guys saw here at Blast? Because in terms of rating, I think the only people better than him were Nico and ZywOo at this event. So who? And he seriously can take over games, and even on T side when he has the op, he can trade like it's a rifle. He can just run into a bomb site, get the trade, and then now you're playing a post plant with an op.
I mean, I think third is pretty obvious.
Yeah, you think he's third? Oh, third's okay. All right, sure thing. Yeah, okay.
But actually, Shiro's a good show from chat.
Okay, yeah, it would be Shiro. You're right. Yeah. I think
Shiro. We haven't really seen Shiro yet, which is probably why it wasn't in your.
We saw him at FunSpark, and Shiro was the best player at that event by far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where if this level of form can be sustained by Surson, I safely would put him 4th right now. In terms of form, yeah, I actually there's no question about that. And there's This is a thing where it's like where I'm talking about form. I'm not talking about what he did 3 months ago. It's today, and today he is absolutely obliterating people from the server.
No, that's definitely true. You can't say that like Big aren't getting the results because you're just looking at them and they are. So as much as I'm sitting here waiting patiently for the lands to come back in this year, that's something that we're all familiar with back last year. I'm waiting for that to happen again, and then we can talk about Big. We can see what they're all up to, especially with this Favon move. Obviously, that's something that Mauisnake said earlier is going back to a full German lineup, and sucks for Gade, but whatever. I mean, I saw some funny comment somewhere that they were like, oh yeah, well, Gade must have made them really angry at all of Denmark because they just demolished Astralis twice or whatever it was. So that, I mean, like they've got it going on. They figured it out. It's just the question of the perennial question for Big is can they figure it out on LAN? Thankfully, for them anyway, we don't actually have to answer that question yet. We can enjoy the fact that they're just popping heads left, right, and center, and Peeker's advantage and blah 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 blah. So. Yeah, I mean, enjoy it while it lasts.
Nature, though, we all have to hate them a little bit because they knocked out 2 NA teams from this tournament. So we have to hate them a little bit.
Okay. Do you guys want to just jump into the NA teams? Let's just cover it. Let's just do it. Okay. So Mix, I bet you were looking pretty close at the complexity stuff. What were your findings?
Definitely not all there. The loss to MIBR was pretty bad. It kind of seemed like a lot of like. This is like for a lot of them kind of like their, well, at least for like junior and just like together like the first time like playing events like this consistently, and they definitely didn't look too good at the moment. Definitely still have quite a ways to go in terms of that, and there's always like growing pains with this team. I think as they get more comfortable and as they kind of get more in tune together, as they kind of get more time together, they do grow more comfortable typically in these like types of games, and like Floppy grows to be a lot more confident. He needs to find like confidence in his role. Grim still needs to find confidence in his role, and they still need to find how they're like slotting in junior and everything. So that was definitely a bit rough. So complexity, definitely hoping they can have a better showing at the QotW they play in.
I think that the NA teams overall, it's really tough for them coming into this because a lot of them are okay. I'm not saying this is in a way to excuse the poor form, especially given the opposition, like Mix said, MIBR, come on. But however, Mix did predict that MIBR was going to smash, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. They didn't exactly smash Astralis, but I think that the result that they ended up getting in that best of one online match, what might have been, some people would say, yeah, it's great. It's even better. However, so going back to the NA teams, though, as long as we're going to focus in on some of the roster shuffles that have happened, like these are players who in some cases have essentially had to play completely different roles than what they were coming up with. And now they have to go back to where they were, right? If you think about Grim, if you think about Junior, obviously Junior's always been opping, but the idea is that he hasn't necessarily been in the full English speaking roster over in Furia. He was probably not used the same way at all, I would say, that as he was on Triumph. And then he goes back to Bad News Bears temporarily. And now here he is in this in the NA roster. Like these players in general don't necessarily have the same like recent history of playing the same roles or in the same positions or in the same team complexion, right? And so that I think is the biggest note here is that we definitely need to see them gel over a long period of time. And I think it's a deceptive thing because everybody else you're thinking, okay, well, if you're going international like Shocks on Liquid, then you've got to change your language, you've got to do all of those things in addition to finding spots on a team. But so it feels like, they should just go instantly. What's the problem? What's the delay? What's the holdup? These guys don't have nearly as many excuses. And so I'll just say a little bit of devil's advocate there. Watch out because these players might just need a little bit more time to gel is all I'm saying. So I can't say I'm surprised. I am a bit disappointed. Like I wanted to see an NA team escape one of the
I wanted them to at least beat MIBR.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest disappointment for me. Yeah. No, what did you think? What do you think of Cole at this?
I mean, between this event and FunSpark, I think that obviously FunSpark had the caveat of JT being playing online
140 thing. Yeah.
They also all of their maps there were really close. Over here, a little less so, obviously. They took G2, I think, 16-12, and MIBR was 16-10 or something. Or maybe it's the other way around, I'm not sure. To me, that, like, obviously, those aren't great results.
Big was 16-10. Yeah.
Big was 16-10. Obviously, those aren't great results. But I still think that the fact is this team haven't had nearly as much time to actually practice in Europe as most of these other teams that are actually committed to staying there. And it's literally only the first month of the season so far. And I think they only had, I want to say, a week and a half or 2 weeks of practice there. And one of them was even without JT actually being there in person. So I think over time, this team just needs probably another 2 to 3 weeks of consistent European practice to sort of surpass some of the barriers they have right now in terms of actually overcoming some of those late game situations. I think one of the big things I noticed from the matches they were playing here was that Junior is still really struggling to sort of fit in and sort of reach that same level that he had before. So I think once he actually is able to find his form again, then they'll be able to find a lot more consistent impact because it was pretty hard.
Just like there's like
obviously
three
overcome
moving
some of that.
there's like three moving pieces that they still have to like figure out and kind of like give time to gel, which is like Floppy, obviously mood role, so like he's more of like a hard lurker role now. Grim is like still, you know, trying to get back into like a decent form. He's kind of playing similar roles around Liquid, but it's like in a much different way. So it's not really that
What do
similar.
you
With
think?
Junior,
How do you think he plays him in a different way? I didn't look at Grimm's demos, but so I didn't like take a super close look.
well,
and I'm sure you look closer than I did.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily mean like playing differently already, but like what he has to do and like what he has to bring to the team in those roles is like a lot different than what it was from Liquid. So it's like
You think he has to
complexity
come up with more or what?
Yeah, I think like more aggressive, like more. He just
Yeah.
has to be more confident, like being aggressive, like taking space in his roles, just being confident, like taking duels in them, and like actually, you know, gaining the confidence that like he's gonna win them a lot of the time, like understanding that like his teammates trust him, even if like, you know, he goes for something and it doesn't work, which I think still takes like a lot of time to kind of get out of your system.
Yeah.
After a team like Liquid. And then like with Junior, I know that like the big thing with Junior at the moment is like his comms are a lot worse than OC's, I believe. That's definitely something that like it's kind of like similar to like where OC was at the start of like the ATK team, where like he's kind of lacking in comms, kind of lacking in assertiveness a lot of the time. I think Junior doesn't as much lack in assertiveness. It's just that, you know, he's often like not talking and like not calming enough to what his teammates are used to. So that's like another thing that like they're trying to work him up towards, and like they have to get used to playing around differently. So it's like really a lot more different, like a lot of different moving pieces compared to just like replacing like Marky 1-for-1 and then like replacing OC 1-for-1. It's a big transition.
I'll say one big difference I did notice about Junior versus OC in this lineup at both FunSpark and this event is that I think that what we see on sometimes the VOD makes it look like, oh, Junior's missing shots, but I think actually OC misses shots too. It's not that was the thing. It was more like OC just gave himself so many more chances in rounds.
Yeah.
Like OC knew how to move around what I would call kind of tier 1 European strats and execs a little bit better, that he can find space and find opportunities more frequently than Junior, where I think Junior, like, it's kind of hurts to say, but
Like
Junior's kind of been kind of noob stomping, I think, in Premier, like the style that he's been playing a little bit more, whereas OC kind of doesn't, like, Junior kind of takes more risks, took more risks that look kind of like that you could have died if you did that and you missed the shot in a way that was bad. But with OC, it was almost like every shot he took, he found as many opportunities as possible, and he hit enough of the shots that even if he missed a couple, he still gave himself maybe 2 more chances in that same round.
Like the difference when you're playing against him is that like if you're playing against OC, it feels like probably like 5 times harder to actually find him and kill him compared to like Junior, where it's like oftentimes where like if you're like have someone there quick for a trade, or like if he misses the shot, you're often just kind of catching him out. Whereas like with OC, I found like as OC especially, as like he got better and better, it became like a lot harder to actually like find him and kill him. He would just, you know, he's just really good at repositioning, making sure he's not in a place where he's like misses one shot and then just gets caught off guard. He was very aggressive, but like he knew how to do it a lot better, and possibly because he has been playing against like better teams for a better time than Junior has.
It's like the same way Device is frustrating to play against in his prime.
Yeah,
it's like the best comparison I can make off the top of my head.
Yeah, if you were to do a if you were to do an OC versus Junior, I would definitely put OC as the Device, and then Junior as I don't even know who I'd put him as right now. I mean,
simple, but without necessarily hitting all the shots.
yeah, without he doesn't hit
Like,
everything. He doesn't hit with like 90% accuracy. Yeah, that's I guess that's kind of fair.
Do we feel like all of the oppers, at least at key moments for the NA teams, like I know we've been zeroing in a bit on complexity, right? But I feel like all of them kind of went a bit missing in the like just at the right times to make sure that they, when their team needed them the most, they vanished, sort of thing. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's a massive trend because it's only a sample size of at most 2 events in the case of complexity, but for the most part, 1 event. But it does feel like, I remember the games against Big. I'm just thinking about back to like obviously there's. It's not just OC, it's not just Junior, but CSGO was another opper that I think wasn't necessarily up to, we were hoping that this new lineup would reinvigorate him and we'd be able to see some of the NRG CSGO, that good shit CSGO, but instead you just take the
We haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten it. Yeah. Let's switch the conversation over to EG a bit. I caught a good amount. I think I caught like I didn't catch all the group stage stuff, but I watched their play in 1 versus Big. I saw that Automatic was really consistent. Like he felt like a guy that made almost no mistakes, and for a guy that's just coming back into the space, it was really like on his defaults when they beat Big on overpass. I don't think he got caught once on his defaults on
Yeah, like
T-side.
the difference between like how Automatic played coming back and how Nitro played coming back was just like completely night and day.
Yeah.
Automatic. I was saying like Automatic kind of looked like he had the floppy buff where you came back and you just looked like reinvigorated. You just looked even better.
Yes, yeah, I could attest to that. Yeah, what do you guys get out of this EG lineup? I mean, I think you kind of said it already, Pernogo, that CSGO was not it's just not what we needed. I actually think that almost a bigger problem for me is Breeze though. Like I thought Breeze. It feels like with CSGO. There's kind of there could be a confidence thing with opping. It sometimes is like you just have some trouble getting back into the flow, but like rifling doesn't feel like it should be this hard for Breeze, and it kind of is.
Yeah, there were probably bigger problems than the op. I figured that was a nice transitioning point because we were just talking about ops for so much in the other side of things. Yeah, I think I always notice I have like this weird thing where I try to focus on like, okay, did they get the op this round? But, because especially with the economy changes that have gone back and forth and the fact that the meta is the way that it is with a lot of saving, you're almost like setting up your opper to succeed and you're taking the L on a disproportionate number of rounds on CT side if you get outmaneuvered by your opponents that you have to save. And even Ts are saving more often, although it's not the majority of rounds by any means, to keep the AWP out, right? So that's why I personally look to that and I'm thinking your team is like literally building protocols of how to exit the bomb site or exit like towards another area of the map and hold angles and maybe even use utility just to save, just to stay alive after being hunted, right? So you have all of these responsibilities as a result of that. And if anybody plays MOBAs, it's like if you've got all the gold on your team and then you just run in an int and die and then like, well, okay, well now we can't really do anything. Now the difference in CS is somebody else could pick up the gun, but maybe that's even what they were supposed to do in this event. I don't know, man. Because CSGO does feel like he was still just his old self, and we need his old self, like I mentioned earlier. But to the point about Breeze, it does feel like CSGO isn't the only one here that deserves a little bit of criticism in the demo review, a little bit of looking at what he could be doing better. I feel like to some extent, I have seen Breeze go up and down, so there's like a heartbeat there, but CSGO has been a bit more of a flat line at this point, and that's probably why I zeroed in on him a little bit more, because I'm just waiting for him to show me a sign of life, whereas Breeze, I know like he's been better in the last year plus with EG, right? He's achieved some semblance of his older form a little bit more recently than CSGO has, and that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for both of those players to come back. But for me, the biggest question is whether or not Stewie's having an instant positive effect on this lineup. And maybe that's a question that you guys might be better equipped to answer than I am, because I'm just watching from the sidelines and you guys have probably talked to the players a bit more than I have. Maybe not recently, but like, do you guys think that Stewie in particular is like the man for the job? Because this is a guy with a lot of questions surrounding him.
I actually think that Stewie knows best how to use, and this just should not be surprising at all. He knows best how to use his ex teammates.
Sure, yeah.
Rush actually did pretty solid, and
Yeah,
Automatic
like out of
pretty
out of like
solid.
everyone, it was like
For-
Russian automatic kind of looked the best.
Yeah, why is dude? Yeah, Rush actually had some pretty impactful rounds in their games and stuff. So like finding multi-frags in positions where complexity Rush, I don't know if I would have expected that, but
Yeah.
EG Rush is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there was like
you
a
look-
nice 2v3 Rush had where it was like
Yeah.
like Rush absolutely like it was on overpass. Like Rush had to like make a play, like push into bank, like kill one guy, and then he kind of like kept pushing further and like kind of just won them the round just entirely by his own, just like
yeah.
being super aggressive in 2v3 and just like it was kind of surprising to me. That like Rush and automatic almost like kind of looked the best out of everyone on the team, and I definitely have like my questions with like Stu's IGLing, but one thing that like I always notice immediately, like even with this team or just with his teams in general, is that I feel like they never play scared. Like a Stewie team is never like playing scared to lose. You know what I mean? I always feel like they have like a really good mentality going into the games, and they always like, and that like that mentality of like how they play, I think kind of gives all his teams like a pretty good chance against most teams they play against. Because Stu just kind of has like that natural leader mindset of just he doesn't fear like any of the other teams. So it was almost, I think, hindsight, almost, I kind of thought that like EG looked the best out of all the teams, but when I go back and look at it, I still think Liquid probably overall performed the best.
Oh, dude, just imagine this EG team with OC instead of Cirque right now. Oh man, it would be nuts.
This EG team is that version of is like NA Astralis right now. It's like, I think they would have more success if they brought back Skadoodle and Tarek from the bench. Just saying.
There's actually reason to believe that because of how Cirque and Breeze performed, but yeah, okay. We'll talk about the last NA team, Liquid. What you got? So, what do you guys think of their run got cut short because of NaVi? I think that if it weren't NaVi, like there's a maybe there, but I also think that Veto idea they picked Ancient into NaVi if I'm not mistaken, and that was just like they didn't have anything for that at all, and I feel like that's Ancient's kind of a trick pick for a lot of teams where it's kind of a bait where you think that, we can catch them off guard with that. But I actually don't think, even if you catch people off guard, that there's enough. I think it's just the map design. There's just not always enough you can do to make it like a huge surprise, because everybody has a pretty strong CT side on that map. So it's tough to find footing anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liquid's problems just came earlier on than the NaVi matches because they choked 2 leads versus FaZe in the groups.
Oh, okay, yeah,
that was brutal.
That was like the most brutal match that I watched on both ends. It seemed like flashes of old Liquid almost in that sense, but I don't think that I would agree with saying that Liquid is probably the best looking out of the NA teams at this event specifically. I think that I don't know whether to even say that they need more time to practice because a lot of these players are really experienced, and obviously I think OC looked pretty good at this event in general in terms of adapting into this lineup. So I'm not really sure. I don't think anything really needs to change for them. They just have to, again, just get more reps under their belt. But again, it's not like this Liquid choking thing is a not an eternal story. So I just hope that this doesn't sort of carry forth on this lineup, because watching that Inferno game especially, I think it was like an 11-4 lead, or maybe I don't remember if they won rounds after the half actually. Hold on, let me check quickly. But I think they had an 11-4 lead. Yeah, and then they lost something like the next 8 out of 9 rounds or something like that, and it was a tie game, and then they lost in overtime after getting match point first.
Yeah.
So that was a painful game to watch.
It's just how it goes with Liquid, man. Like people, even the fans are accustomed to it now. You'll always see them going like, "Well, we have this lead. I can't wait to see how we lose." Or the real fans turn it off after they get the lead, and then they inevitably read the match thread later, like, "Thank God I didn't watch that whole game, because God, I would have been so pissed." But that's what gets me about the Liquid team, is that it seems like no matter which players they cycle through, they always have the potential, and it's almost like, I don't think that changing the banner necessarily does much to it. Like, if, for example, a hypothetical scenario, if this was a different team entirely, right? If this was Orgless instead of Team Liquid, I still think the same stuff could happen. I think it's probably a lot more about the, like you said, note the fact that they don't have reps with this particular roster means that Nitro hasn't had the time to potentially instill like the leader of man sort of qualities that he's purported to have behind the scenes. I think that's probably a key missing ingredient for them. So assuming he can pick up the slack with his numbers and he can improve as he gets back into the saddle, so to speak, then he can focus mostly on just making sure that his players aren't going super emo. And I mean, that's something that people have said about, for example, AleksiB, the behind the scenes stories that end up leaking out anyway because of the players involved. They say that, oh, this guy, if he doesn't, he can get checked out, basically, is the gist of what I've heard. So, I mean, that's one of those things that I think is almost, it's worrisome when that kind of story becomes common knowledge, because that's something where that can be an emblematic, like, defining trait if you're not careful with it, right? If not just for you, the player, you can choose to ignore it. But if everybody is like, well, this team lost, and look, AleksiB looked kind of emo in the post-game interview or whatever, so he's probably, like, then they just speculate forever. And, like, that's a small minority of people who are even watching the games, but it's vocal enough that if you read it at all, if you take it in at all, it can almost start to define you. So I just hope he's himself managing to stay away from that, because he has to be their star. Still, he has to be their top fragger.
He does well. It's him or NAF, and OC should be in contention for those three. What I would love to see to try to thwart that kind of Liquid curse is for maybe like Shocks to step up a little bit. But I think that in terms of letting him get the reps in, I think something that Shocks hopefully will bring, because he isn't really bringing it in the server right now, is a better mentality, because he's been known in the past to be a really good captain of sorts, to keep people's mental in check, and that's something where if they're able to use the best parts of Shocks's intangibles, then Liquid has potential to really kind of like pull them up from themselves up by their bootstraps and get back into shape in these kind of games, like where they just shouldn't let things slide as they have in this tournament. And hopefully it just stops here. Hopefully Shocks just recognizes that, hey, I can contribute here in more ways than one. So
what I was going to mention right after Pernogo is that the one promising part of their run here is that AleksiB, OC, and NAF were their three best players pretty consistently in the matches that they played. And as you said, I think either Shocks or Nitro stepping up a little bit will help them take that over the line. It's really all they're missing. Whether it's Shocks bringing the emotional stability and Nitro playing a little bit better, or Shocks bringing up his own individual level a little bit, they're literally just missing that last tiny little impact between one of those two players to actually take some of these maps, because most of the maps that I watched were close enough to the point where they lost based on like one kill in certain situations. Like they literally got entried somewhere, like Nitro lost a dual banana or something, and then they ran over B really quickly. So a lot of those sort of micro losses between like a single player losing a duel are things that can change relatively easily, with obviously Nitro getting more practice in after switching back.
I think almost like the biggest question for me in Liquid is going to be just like how OC develops, and like how he starts to play against like all these like top teams as he gets like more consistent experience against them, and if he starts to like level up himself and consistently delivering against those teams, because I do think Shocks and Nitro will improve. Like I think Shocks just naturally is going to improve. Like he's basically been put in like all the bitch roles, just like what he's brought in for, and I think it's a good use for him. And like you said, he'll kind of help the morale. He'll kind of help, keep things up if they are like having these choking issues. Like Shocks, is a pretty good leader in his own right, and I think he'll be able to help him with these types of things. And with Nitro, it's obviously just he needs more time. He was kind of in Valorant a lot longer than Automatic or Floppy were, so he came back and he was obviously pretty struggling. Like a lot, I saw him like he was pretty much at the bottom of the scoreboard like most games, and I don't necessarily think like Nitro's going to turn into like a sick IGL fragger again, but like I do think he'll consistently perform a lot better than he was.
I mean, keep in mind he was also the Opera last time he was the IGL, so that really elevated his stats in certain areas. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that back as a rifler in this lineup, especially.
It also
have
doesn't
the
even need
positions do
to.
it.
I mean, they have a
Yeah,
better
exactly.
offer on the roster. So the thing about the Liquid lineup is that it does feel like our general consensus is that they're the closest of the NA teams to just getting it over the line and actually, for example, escaping the groups here or whatever, continuing to qualify onto the greater events. The question is really like how much of this also is going to transform to LAN play, I think, because the last time we saw Shocks do some good things, in Vitality, obviously, that was in the heyday of their LAN play when they had their sort of like emotional honeymoon thing that went on. There's also questions about whether or not the like Shock specifically is translating well over into English. For me, we've said on this podcast before that one of the things that Shocks does bring as a veteran is a little bit of emotional stability in that sense, or a leadership of man type mentality. But that is also, like, I think a caveat for that is that that's coming on after the fact that he's built a reputation as a bit of a queen, right? A bit of a drama queen. And that also, he's, specifically, that was communicating in French. And I don't know how up to the challenge he is of doing the same thing that he was doing on Vitality as the veteran, as the person who's trying to lead everybody into battle. I don't know how well he can do that in English in the same way. Because the thing about Shocks is that I've heard that Mr. Papillon, Monsieur Papillon, is a bit of a poet, a bit of a wordsmith. If he can't really get the right words out, because he's not fully grasping the language, that might affect even how confident he is, right? So that's a bit of a reach. But, you guys get what I'm saying, is that it's a bit different when you're trying to think in another language, but you also want to tap into that element that really does inspire confidence and the feeling of morale-boosting leadership actually being on the server. You can't do that to the same degree if you're speaking
I don't think the language issue is really much of a problem for Shocks.
I think he's pretty
Not on this lineup.
fluent. I think he's pretty fluent.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
From interviews that he's given in the past, he can be almost verbose sometimes. So
that's good to hear, because I
yeah.
personally haven't caught him in any of these English speaking interviews. I suppose I will be able to now a bit more often because of the Team Liquid content team being. I saw they released like a FPL frag movie with him recently or whatever he was posting about it.
I do think it'll just take like time for him to actually get comfortable and used to it, because I mean, at the end of the day, he is still in like a completely different environment than he's ever been in before. I think he hasn't only been in like French teams up to this point, right?
If he's been in a non-French speaking team,
almost
I can't remember.
So,
years
and so now he's playing with 4 Americans, and it's not going to be like that huge of like a culture shock or anything, but it does definitely take like, a bit of getting used to, like this different environment, different players. I'm sure they have a different mentality somewhat than what he's used to. And so over time, he'll get more comfortable with them in and out of game, and that'll allow him to just kind of be more comfortable in terms of, if he needs to be kind of like a leader of men in some of these situations and kind of lift them up, then I think he'll be comfortable doing that.
I'm kind of moving into a position now with where we are. It's 2022 with players that if you're going to join an international roster that's not in your first language, it becomes a little bit of your own fault if you just can't speak English well enough nowadays. Like this is so privileged to even say this, but no, honestly, it's just seriously like, don't try to make it work if you can't make it work. Like there needs to be a little bit of self-awareness in these kind of moves for yourself when you're switching rosters or you're building an international team, that if these teams that are, there's teams in the tier 2 like Ecstatic that are all like almost all of them are speaking second language English, and they're getting up pretty high for where they should where you look at their names on paper and where they are, it's like what this team is overperforming in English. And then you give a team like Liquid a pass, and it's like maybe you give them a pass because it's like, oh, Shocks doesn't really know English. It's like, dude, like Shocks should speak better English than like 3 of these guys on Ecstatic.
Look at Vitality. They also have like ZywOo, who just learned English. You have 2 new Danish players in a French core now.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
performed very well at this event.
The counterpoint to that is that you can just stop at they have ZywOo, and you don't need to talk about any caveats. They have fucking ZywOo, dude. Like at that point, it does. I do agree that like if you're popping in and you're saying like, yeah, I'm going to join this international lineup, but I don't really know that great English. You do have to, learn from what your limitations are. You really got to know them, maybe test them a little bit, but ultimately don't bring down everybody else and also yourself just because you wanted to do something that you thought you could do, but you really can't. And that's why I keep telling Valve to stop making maps.
Okay. That spun off somewhere I didn't think it was going to go at the end of that. Sure.
Reasonable.
Let's just go to Vitality. Let's go to Vitality here. Let's because they had an awesome event. there's not. I mean, other than they lost to FaZe, and I think they pretty much just owned after that, right?
They lost to ropz.
They lost to ropz, my favorite player.
Insane game from ropz in that
My-
specific match.
My
Holy
absolutely favorite player. Okay. We'll get into ropz. We'll get into FaZe.
Yeah.
But I want to bring up that I think that this Vitality lineup, the way I put it to start or like months ago was that I think this Vitality lineup should hit the ground running. I think they immediately should be contending for titles essentially. Like they should be immediately no 3 months from now, not even like 2 months from now. Like I want them to be contending, and I think they showed a good enough form here that they are easily like top 5 in the world easily. I don't think that I have many doubts about saying that at all. So I think that the Dupree Magisk angle of them getting to play certain areas together too, like that's just kind of like one of those things that's just going to have built-in chemistry from the get-go. And I think it's a really like pragmatic approach, like the way they played like Dust 2. I think Dust 2 they played B together, and I think like what Magisk was B anchor, which was always his spot, and then Dupree was B rotator. Like that's just a match made in heaven.
Like B-side on Dust 2 at this point is literally just called like Magisk. That's like literally what every team calls it. When you're like
there's
playing,
like so many spots
on site.
Yeah, the box on site where you're using the AUG and you're peeking through the little, like there's a little triangle window in the box. Yeah, that's Magisk right there. Yeah. I think either way, I think this lineup is really good already. I think that basically this is what we hope for this kind of lineup, where the Kyojin element was obviously like the biggest drawback of Vitality, and where you'd always be like, oh, but they have Kyojin, and now it's Magisk in those spots, and or if it's not Magisk, then it's just somebody else or it's Masuda, who I think took over like long A on Dust 2, for example.
It's crazy. Like
it's just better.
Vitality beat G2, and ZywOo was like the 3rd highest rated player in the series.
Yeah,
it's like what?
Oh, their teamwork on the fly is already so good too.
Yeah.
Like they're flashing for each other so quickly and reacting with crossfires. It's so pleasing to watch them put things together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I want to see them play more best of threes at some of these upcoming tournaments. Obviously, I think they were the only team. They and FaZe obviously were the only team during their first group stage to actually play a map other than Inferno in their group, which was, by the way, the most boring thing I've seen. Like, even the analyst desk was not having it by the end of the day.
Even production was memeing it. Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this team play more best of threes. So I think, especially when we got to the later stages of the event, they were also pretty clearly showing that they could perform very well deeper into series as well. So the loss to FaZe didn't really tarnish my reputation.
You're gonna say FaZe me. You're gonna say FaZe me.
What?
I like
you're gonna say the loss to FaZe didn't FaZe me.
No, I can't do that. I'm leaving that sort of thing for Pernogo.
Okay.
It's not my style of joke, you know.
Sure.
I think I think they're going to be a team that performs really, really well in best of threes. So I would agree with you. They're definitely clearly a top 5 team after this event in terms of the overall cohesion and level that they play at already. So I really want to see how they're going to play in Katowice, because that's going to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in seeing where, like, specifically what the ceiling is for Vitality, right? Because like this is like Note said, not a great number of best of threes, not a huge sample size to go for yet. But obviously the G2 game was a barn burner despite being online. I think all of this stuff is really exciting, and it's really nice to be able to see them go up against other top teams, other teams that are meant to be top teams, following all of these roster moves. So that's one of the things that I'm definitely pretty grateful for. Seeing them in action there, obviously everybody saw the ZywOo like Apex flashing him in and him getting that ace on what was a short, like stuff like that. Yeah, that's some. Just, of course, ZywOo is still on the money, which is what we need to see. Like, we need to see ZywOo keep, maintain his form. Even if he dips down a little bit, then you can start talking about, like, oh, can everybody else, fire up to their level? This is still one of the things that I'm unsure about, is whether or not they were right to pick Masuda over Shox, assuming that's even what was on the table. Like, maybe Shox was trying to leave anyway. But if you know, if they go for Masuda, they're saying we prefer the firepower and this like sort of the future of this rookie over the veteran talent. And to an extent, they already have like a decent amount of veteran talent. It's not like they're lacking that on that lineup. But the question that I always have is like, okay, do you really need more firepower if you have Dupree and Magisk? And do you necessarily, at the same time, do you need veteran status when you have ZywOo behind you now, right? Like something that Astralis are feeling pretty hard, worse for wear over is the fact that ZywOo is not behind them anymore, I think. So like that's something that, you know, you can go either way on. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. This is one of those things where if they didn't get off to immediate success, I would be a little bit worried, even though this is an online event, because this is a team that has so much talent, and Vitality as an org with the full French lineup were doing so well at the end of last year that it's like, man, the expectations were pretty high. So the fact that they defeated G2, like that was pretty good for like must have been a nice sigh of relief, right, for them to be like, oh, all right, well, first challenge taken care of.
This is a kind of a specific point when I watch them and I'm thinking about how good some of their rounds looked. I will say that I think that the Vitality test for me is when maybe their T side entries don't go as well, because there were a few too many rounds for me where, I mean, this is such a weird, like, nitpicky statement, but they almost got too much value out of Dupree and Apex just finding entries on certain T side rounds, and I'm kind of like, can you keep doing that moving forward when some of these teams are a little bit more well-oiled with their crossfires and how their like kind of mid-round setup should be? Because sometimes Apex would just run into B and just double headshot two people, and or Dupree would do that on Inferno. Like they would just run in, and it's just like, what? That just went too well, you know. And it's maybe they're just super skilled, maybe they're just really good, so they can do stuff like that. But I also feel like when their backs are against the wall a little bit more and it's a 2v3 post plan, I should be able to trust them, but I also don't know, like, how is a 2v3 post plan going to look when it's Masuda and Magisk or something, who were, you know, just a little bit weaker at this event. So I don't know. I think there's going to be some tests coming up for Vitality where I want to see them pushed a little bit harder by teams, because I think sometimes their game plans just went too well. Which is so weird. Maybe that's ZywOo. You know, maybe ZywOo's helping out with that. So
that's in part why I said I was looking forward to seeing them play best of threes, because when you're playing a best of one and you're vetoing down to a single map, you're going to be relatively comfortable overall, and you sort of know where it's going to end up in general. So being able to see best of threes where a team might pick a map that's on the fringe of their pool, like maybe it's their third or fourth best map, then I think we'll start seeing more of that, more of what you're talking about in terms of how uncomfortable they could possibly get.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to FaZe, who, you know, they took that map off of Vitality. This lineup was really also hyped because for reasons that it's just Olaf was just, you know, hit or miss in games, but ropz is such a consistent force. And even though I say a lot of negative stuff about ropz, like I'm not so far in like ropz hater island that I can't recognize his greatness.
You also did acknowledge, like, this is just a straight upgrade, like, no matter how you put it.
Yeah, it's a straight up upgrade. It's just a straight up upgrade, and I think that proved itself at this. But I will say that they were very close to losing to Big. Like, I'm not gonna let that slide, because I think. Yeah, so like they could have lost. They probably should have lost to Liquid, and they could have lost to Big. So it wasn't by any means like as clean as you would have liked to see them, but they still did not drop a map in their group, and they still got through 2-0 over Big also. So I think that
they lost to Vitality once.
No, wait, not 2-1.
2-1 over Big.
2-1, yeah. So
and they lost to Vitality one time in their group.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, right. So it's not like they're not flying.
Definitely still
gates.
a bit like it's still up and down. Definitely, they're not just like full on like honeymoon phase, just fucking banging out everyone.
Right. What did you think of maybe like the maps they lost, or even the close ones? Whatever. Yeah.
One thing that actually stood out to me, I almost said earlier, was that Brokey actually just kind of keeps impressing me with the op. I feel like he always just kind of has like a lot of impact. Especially, I feel like he's almost the one that's like almost consistently showing up the most between like from like map to map. Like Twist had like a bad series against Big. ropz was kind of like it wasn't like bad or anything, but he definitely wasn't like mouse sports form or anything. So I actually was like really impressed with Brokey. Now he just kind of I didn't know how much I actually rate him as like an opper. I think I like said that in like some of the past episodes, but he kind of just really impressed me like so far at Blast. Just super consistent. Seemed to always like have a lot of impact most consistently on FaZe, which was like a really solid anchor for them to have. And then it was kind of like a bit more up and down still between like Twist, Rain, and ropz.
I want to say that I think like this rifle firepower on their team is so it's kind of hard to even like get a grasp for it, because I noticed when watching Blast, and this is obviously impossible when you're watching a VOD or a live game. Like there were a lot of rounds where the camera would be on ropz, and then you just kind of see the kill feed, and Twist just gets 2 kills, and you're kind of like, what just happened? And he's just kind of silently locking down his positions. When you actually look at his stats on CT side for Twist, he had a 1.48 kill death ratio. Like, that's pretty, and a 1.24 HLTV rating. That's kind of insane. And I feel like I feel like we actually didn't see like a third of his kills, if not more, in the games that I saw, at least of FaZe. So it's really.
It is kind of weird. I know what you're saying, is like whenever I feel like as from when Twist actually joined Liquid, like I mean joined FaZe, sorry. It's always kind of felt like he's been good, but also he's just kind of like quiet and like silent sometimes. Like it's kind of hard to explain.
Well, obviously the Observer is the Shadow Realm Mauisnake, right? The parallel universe one where he's the biggest ropz fan, so he's always spectating ropz.
It was on ropz a lot. Yeah. It was on ropz a lot. Yeah.
It was kind of interesting though, because even on the broadcast on Overpass, they pointed out the fact that they have ropz gives them the opportunity to run like a couple of different plays successfully that obviously Kerrigan tried running before, but it didn't really work with having Olaf as a piece. So there was a round where they like popped out Monster within 10 seconds of the round, and they just sent, I don't remember who it was, I think it was Rain or Kerrigan or someone, and they just wide swung out, died, and the other 3 of them are just sitting in the Monster smoke, and they go out so late, and they still find success because ropz goes and clutches a 1v3 after they eventually get on the site.
Well, that's
and
just,
it's like it's just like the fact that they have a player that can sort of come in and late and clean up like that and make those situations, sort of reclaim those situations, and they didn't really have that before. Like you either had Twist pop off and win that 1v3, or you had nobody else really to do it before.
Okay, yeah.
Does
that mean the strat is good though? Like we can run this play because he wins 1v3.
I was expecting.
So that's not necessarily what I'm saying. The end point that I'm trying to make here is that the opportunities to make plays are opened up so much more by having someone like ropz on there. Because even Twist was able to make a lot more plays because ropz is putting so much pressure elsewhere, and the other team's so worried about where ropz is going to be. Like on Overpass, he was literally on B, he was short, he was A, he was long. When you have a player that versatile who's having that much impact, you can also just have Twist go and sort of do exactly whatever he wants. And he also was able to create so much pressure without any sort of, I guess, with less worry than he would being the only person who can really open up some of those types of rounds, right?
I know what you meant by it. Like, you know, obviously having ropz in your default now just opens up like a lot of different plays. Like there's like a lot more pressure that like you can add or like fake out and stuff. But it's just funny how you explain it. It's like, so before Kerrigan strat wouldn't work, but now it works because ropz can clutch a 1v3.
But it's literally true though. It's actually true.
I think he's a genius, dude.
Playbook is massive.
Kerrigan is clearly a genius. At least so I thought until the last series against Big, because up until that point, every game except for the second Vitality match was overtime, and that second Vitality match was 16-10. Clearly, he's trying to get as many rounds as possible of practice, and that's why it was 16-14 against Big on their own map pick. And then they were like, 16-2, 16-1, whatever, just get it over with. We thought this was a best of one bye, and then so that's how they won, I think. But I actually think
playing to win scrims. What are you doing?
Exactly. I actually think though that like if there's some truth to my very comedic assessment of Kerrigan like trying to make sure that they get a decent amount of practice, and it's not stage time because it's online, but the idea that they can gel in an actual live match and they can sort of afford to go up and down a little bit in their groups and still qualify out. I mean, the you're not giving yourself the most large margin of error. If you fall down and then you don't qualify, it really you got some egg on your face at that point. But if you can manage to qualify despite all the close games, in theory, that should be fuel for you to improve and continue to gel as a team. And all these intangibles that we love to talk about on this talk show. And for me, I think obviously Kerrigan's supposed to be like the GOAT IGL at using a new player who's just slotted into the roster and instantly finding success with them. Because that's what he almost qualified like the old Envy roster to a major once upon a time, if you recall. And he was just on loan there for like a month.
It was like with Drone and Cutler and something.
Nifty and JDM.
Nifty JDM, yeah.
Nifty and JDM.
Wow.
Yike.
Yes,
That's a big yike.
It was both, yes.
Yeah.
You know, if Glaive was running that roster, Glaive would be like, give me this fucking op.
I kind of want to circle back to the point briefly about the like what ropz allows Kerrigan to do, which he like kind of was capable of doing on Maus even with Dexter, but like he started just playing so passively it was kind of like heartbreaking to watch his skill just be used in the most selfish way ever. But the way like now like this is kind of what I thought you were gonna say, Note, and what I would take from it is that with ropz, like when you run a default and you have ropz on some side of the map, it's almost just like he's not 80% of the time he's either gonna find you a kill or just not die, maybe even 90% of the time. So like it just keeps he can keep so much area safe at the same time. Like lobby on nuke, he can basically hold that whole lobby from any spot. Like it's so weird how he's able to have a grasp on it, like the way he does. It's just like it doesn't matter if he's in trophy room, but it's still like he's not gonna let them push lobby. You know, like he's really good at shit like that.
That was kind of the point I was trying to make in the end, though, because like when ropz is able to do that, you're also allowing Twist, which was the topic we were talking about before, to have also more impact as a whole, because you now have two players that are able to pressure like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's go to a team that probably surprised a lot of people with their qualification to the finals. That's OG. So this was probably, I mean, for a lot of people, I think the nexa move I feel like a lot of people were kind of neutral / negative on this actually, and I think they look really good. I think they like every game I caught of OG was pretty impressive. I thought their T sides were a pretty solid balance of calling with kind of like map. Dude, the way they played against NIP, I'll say this. When they played against NIP on Mirage, I was shocked at how it felt like pressured NIP was on some of their rounds when NIP was on CT side. Like OG was able to take so much ground from them and then just make their life feel bad, like shit. So I think that Nexa is actually showing a lot very quickly in terms of his calling ability, and it's kind of it's raising my stock for him as a leader with what he's already done so quickly with this team.
I think QotW would be like the big test for them, because to be honest, they didn't really get tested much here. Like they played who they play, like Astralis twice and NIP without device, obviously. So I don't know, I was pretty neutral on move overall. I felt like they would still be pretty decent, just because like I feel like the change of pace would be good for the team and good for pretty much everyone in it. But I definitely could see them being better than they were before, just by virtue, like I said, like that change of pace and that change of like vision sometimes is just what a team needs. Like, you know, just freshens things up. It helps maybe like a player like Flames that like wasn't able to really get himself going with AleksiB, and you know, yeah. But overall, I'm kind of like neutral on OG still. I don't want to like overhyped them based on the blast performance, but they did look pretty decent.
That's fair.
Fair. I mean, they basically cruised their way to qualification. The only team that really gave them much migraines were NIP, which is another team that we probably didn't expect to almost make it as far as OG did. So yeah, I mean, that's a situation for I don't even know if we'll get to NIP specifically, but for OG, I think the biggest revelation for them was probably just having injecting a new IGL into something that I think by this point, the whole team was probably, even if it wasn't finding them the most success, the whole team was probably pretty comfortable and dialed into AleksiB's system. So if you can convince somebody that like you're coming in, you know, your organization has done the swap with G2 for the IGL, you probably have some clout at that point to basically be able to say, hey, listen, we've got AleksiB's strat book remnants here. We're going to stitch some of those together and keep the old system. But how about all these ideas? And then, you know, obviously Nexa can start calling the strats in a way that for one, no team going up against them is going to know exactly what to expect. And for another, like even the team, if they find any little bit of success, they're going to instantly, like psychologically, I think, if you find a little bit of success, this team is probably going to be like, oh, nice, it's working. And then if it doesn't work, it's almost like, well, maybe it's because I don't know the strat well enough because I just started. So let's try it again. And so you still get that like sort of, I mean, they call it the honeymoon period, but I kind of imagine it's like
Probably kind of honeymoony for
yeah,
them right now.
I imagine it's more like you open up a toy for Christmas and it's like a Lego set and you're trying to put the pieces together and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then if it like doesn't work, you're just like, oh, let me try again. You know, so there's my
because
analogy.
like as good as AleksiB is, it's not like OG was like fucking dominating the world or anything. Like they were struggling a lot of last year. So just coming in, like I think like I feel like Flames like better than I've seen him in OG like this like since he joined, and that probably helps like Flames like it's like a new IGL, so you feel more comfortable. Like I'm sure he had his own ideas on like with AleksiB and stuff, but you still just feel like more comfortable with like it's a new IGL, there's new ideas, there's like a new kind of vision for the game, and it just gives you like a fresh start. It is kind of honeymoony, so I do want to see like how they actually grow as a team, and if like Flames continues to get better, if like that's like the main thing for me, especially if OG is like I feel like Flames has to become a star for them for this team to actually perform how they want it to, how it's built. And so if they can keep building on that and it's not just a honeymoon phase, and you know the next move could turn out to be really good for both sides, really.
Yeah, I think the way Nexa was calling for this team worked out really well, just in terms of allowing the individual places to sort of play together. The one thing I did notice in a couple of moments at least was that m0NESY looked a little bit uncomfortable positioning wise in terms of where he was playing on certain maps. Just specifically round to round, there was moments where he at least didn't seem to know like what to do when a team was execing, or he was like in positionally a wrong position, like triple on Mirage when they're coming up connector and ramp or something like that, stuff like that. And that happened a couple of times. So obviously I think that's stuff that can just be improved over time. I just hope that it's not something that AleksiB was sort of mitigating and it sort of regresses in that way. In terms of micromanaging him a little bit.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think that's sort of what I thought of when I saw that happening a little more, because that isn't something that I remember seeing too much of. But I think in general, it's definitely right now we're seeing a honeymoon phase. When we reach something like Katowice and we see them play in more of these big tournaments, it's going to be their real test to see whether they can sort of maintain that momentum, because they're still probably using at least. The players are still probably using a little bit of what they were taught by AleksiB for now, but 3 months from now, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I think when you're only replacing like a 1-for-1 IGL swap and you have the other 4 players, you're likely just going to keep like the entire playbook for the most part, and then just kind of change over time. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to just be like, let's scrap all of this and like completely re-go over everything. So I do, and that's like a big reason, like maybe like how Stan always came into teams that like Daps was just on and just fucking. He would call really good for like the first few months, but then maybe it's, you know, after teams kind of figure them out, maybe not able to adapt and create his own little system. And so you kind of have a lot of momentum from being able to just use the previous stuff, but just calling it yourself and maybe adding, you know, some variations here and there.
Okay, do we think that of the teams that qualified for the spring finals, people can look up all of those teams, but I mean, it's too many to list right now. Do you guys think OG is the weakest of those teams? I would say yes. I'm going to say yeah. I think they're the weakest.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking between them and Big, but I would still put Big above OG, I think.
I think if it were a BO3
I just kind of believe in them more.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it were a BO3 today, I might see OG could win it. Like, they could do it, but it's kind of one of those things where in like 3 weeks, I think Big's just for sure going to be better, actually. So that's... Like, also, this performance from OG, it did involve, when you look at the stats, like Nexa having a 1.24 with the highest KD of anybody on the team. Like, that's not, I'm sorry, that's just not gonna happen a month from now. He was like, he was pretty good for G2 for a while.
Not that high, but he was like a legit fragging IGL like early G2 and on crazy. Like,
yeah. He was.
Hashtag
in the beginning of G2,
crazy.
He was. Yeah.
I think to your spring finals point, the only thing that I would wonder about between Big and OG being the worst team there, or the worst performing team there right now, would be the fact that it should be a LAN event, and if Syerson isn't able to put up the same sort of level that he was online, then I think OG definitely surpasses that. But Obviously, if Searson comes in and he can actually keep that level up, then it should be big over OG.
Yeah, I don't know if the thing is, like, I don't know if OG's success also owes a little bit into not just the online aspect, where like Searson is like a known bedroom abuser at this point, right? But like if you look at OG, like if you look at OG,
sure, yeah,
No skill cannon.
yeah. So
it sounds like he has just wild sex all the time. He's just abusing.
I thought about that after I said it, and I was like, oh, maybe not. But too late now. Just keep it going. OG,
Okay.
I think their success now is more due to the fact of like the honeymoony period, and also the teams not knowing what to expect or how to scout. And people in chat were talking about how OG avoided NaVi. We haven't talked about NaVi yet. We will, but I just wanted to say that if NaVi couldn't scout MIBR because of all of the stuff that was going on in that camp, I don't know that they would have been able to accurately scout OG, and that's a big part of the NaVi camp, is like how scouting stuff, figuring out like what to do in preparation. Yeah, not necessarily just anti-stratting, but just getting a feel for what the team is going to be able to put at you. And they can adapt mid-round, sure, but if they don't need to adapt mid-round because they already have the game plan going in, then they're much better at like coasting through the opening part of the game. So I think OG probably still would have potentially been the team to upset, if they were swapped with MIBR for some reason or whatever. So, but that's a side point. I still feel like teams are going to start to figure out what OG is up to. And at LAN, maybe because of an accelerated schedule or something like that, where the games are more back-to-back, if OG have a strong start early on, then maybe they can, place higher than big. I don't know. It feels like it's kind of it would be a race to the bottom for those two teams. But I guess we don't know who else might... Is that event actually locked in for its team list, or are there more teams that are going to qualify?
There's 2 more teams through the showdown.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
so like depending on who comes to the showdown, maybe then there's like a worse team that can.
I think it's going to
there.
probably be like just to be real, like Gambit, Heroic, VP. It's probably one of those.
In that case,
like
OG and Big are definitely like the bottom two, probably, if those two teams are. I would say anyway. Like if you're listing off, maybe Heroic could, depending on if they're like still in it at this point. But
yeah,
like if VP and Gambit qualify, it's like, well, I definitely put those guys over OG and Big personally.
Alex, surely you mean Liquid and
Complexity's
Complexity.
Oh yeah, right.
I knew it was coming.
yeah, surely.
So you tried to beat Mix too, because I knew it was coming.
Yeah, okay. Surely
I'm on my copium.
Complexity in 3 months, or actually, when's the showdown? It's probably 2 months from now or something. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I wrote down NaVi, but I don't really want to talk about NaVi that much. I think.
Do you ever changing question? Did you guys talk about NaVi?
Classic.
Do you guys really want to? Okay, I'll
I
just
have
put it
just one point to make about.
Sure.
I don't have
NaVi.
anything to say for
Yeah, if we can decide, you can decide.
Yeah,
at your
we'll just go.
So the point is that, like I said earlier about the whole NaVi thing, like if they can't scout you ahead of time, if they don't know what to expect, you can really surprise them. Now, Mauisnake, you said earlier that Ancient was like a trap pick for this, because you think you can catch them off guard, but Valve doesn't know how to make maps, and that's a key flaw in everybody's plan. So if we
lose.
Yeah, exactly. So if we look at just the NaVi side of things, I feel like people were saying something about Blade coping as a result of the MIBR loss. We can talk about the format a little bit later as well that allowed them to qualify in the first place, which is a bit whack. But I think that the reason why everybody always piles on to these first runs, even if they're online, even if they're best of one, everybody's always like, haha, NaVi lost, NaVi era 3 months or whatever. I'm not 100% sure that that's the case, but there was always going to be a question mark as to whether or not NaVi could perform against all the teams that have literally built rosters just to defeat NaVi in the first place. That they don't even look like the most scary opposition. Like,
MIBR
all the rosters such as MIBR.
Exactly. MIBR dropping Shello and saying, fuck you, dude. We're putting in his academy.
I still just can't believe that. I predict MIBR to beat Astralis.
You did.
They beat NaVi and then they lose to Astralis. It's just...
We do have to give you a little
obviously.
round of applause for that one, Mix. Actually,
Sorry.
you did say that MIBR were going to come out on top. I'll just sum up what I think was the story of NaVi. If anyone wants to contest this, feel free. But it just felt like they come into the event. It's the new year for them. They came back from their vacations in where do people in Russia and Ukraine vacation? I don't know. I literally don't know where they vacation. Croatia, yeah, there's some nice beaches in Croatia.
About that.
So they go to Croatia, they vacation, and then they came back. They weren't really in form, and then they suddenly were in form. Like that's where I go with
I
this.
really like. I'm not gonna lie. I don't put like any stock in how NaVi looked. This
Yeah,
event.
I don't
Yeah,
either.
Agreed.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Okay, let's go to the last exciting team then, in my opinion, of this event, and that's G2. We got m0NESY coming in hot with a nice clutch, but I actually don't think m0NESY was like he's okay. m0NESY is like already maybe a top 5, like top 6, 7 scout player out there. Like his scout is, and maybe it's higher than that.
That's
It
so
actually could be-
specific.
it could be higher than that actually. It could be top 4, 5, 4 or 3 scout. Like
Defeated
dude, he
only
gets-
by Legia at Flashpoint 2.
he just
Epic reference.
whips people in the face with the scout, and you don't even see the crosshair move. And this is something we saw at the We Play Academy League, so
Yeah.
we knew it was coming. But it was just like I couldn't believe when he was doing it to the tier 1 teams, just whipping people with the scout. It was like, damn, that was awesome.
You see, with most players, when they have a scout, you're not like too worried about it. You're just like, oh, it's just a scout. But then there's like players like m0NESY and like there's probably like a few others that like when they have a scout, you're like, holy fuck, like this is terrifying. Like you're generally scared of just getting your head popped off like around every corner on an anti-eco.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He was headshotting people constantly with it. Everybody just goes for tags. So many oppers go for tags. Like m0NESY is a notorious body shotter with the scout.
Yeah, I don't blame him. That's a good, good strategy.
It's consistent. It's good to do that, right? But m0NESY is like, I'm all about getting headshots. He's 16, so I can't.
Man.
I was gonna take that somewhere else, but he's 16. But yeah.
Jesus. Reasonable.
Has to go up to Canada for that joke to make sense.
I don't think that makes sense either.
Sure.
I was
Is
gonna
the
say,
age
I
of
think
consent
that,
lower in Canada?
Oh my god.
Let's move on.
Moving swiftly onward.
Moving forward.
I think m0NESY landed about where I expected in terms of where he needed to perform on this roster. As I said, even in the article I wrote for HLTV during the break, I think that he doesn't have to be the best player on this roster. He doesn't even have to be the second best player on this roster. As long as he's bringing consistent impact and actually putting up, like grabbing the kills that he should be with the op and being able to sort of perform better than Omnek was with the op, this team already sort of has the pieces they need with Nico performing so incredibly well with the rifle.
Yep.
Anything past...
No, is he better than m0NESY?
m0NESY?
Yeah, is he better than m0NESY?
How is this even a question?
Yeah,
I mean,
I need to hear you say it.
You know what? I saw the m0NESY 1v4 clutch and a FaceIt pug on Reddit yesterday too, and that was clearly better than m0NESY's. So,
did he really have one? He didn't really have one, did he?
In some FaceIt pug or something, yeah, he did.
Who was he against, like Knock or something?
No. It was literally a pug against random people.
Just kidding. I have no idea why I brought Knock's name into this.
Yeah, I was
Catching
like, where
strays.
did this come from?
Yeah.
Casual strays. I think so for me, like anything past that base level that he brings is just a massive bonus to this team, and I think he definitely played above the level that like the base level that we could have expected from him. So considering this is his first like tier 1 appearance in a tournament, I think that if he's showing that sort of ability already, it's just only going to really get better as he gets more experience over time. Because the way he plays it's not like teams will be able to adapt and suddenly start shutting him down. It's just that he's very consistent in what he's able to put up. So he's just adds more explosive firepower as an opper to this team, and that's really all they needed in the end.
Yeah, I think especially on CT side, he's only going to get scarier when they move to LAN, because obviously of the whole like Peeker's advantage thing plays into effect. He can react to you being on his screen really quickly, like almost unparalleled speed, right? And so if that's happening online, like it's going to be even more. I would speculate it's even more consistent on LAN. The thing for me about the m0NESY move and the fact that AleksiB is now in charge, kind of, I would draw a parallel to the FaZe with ropz now, because like Note made that point earlier that, Kerrigan is now free to call similar or completely different strats, but they have way more opportunities with ropz on the roster. I feel like the same thing is definitely true for m0NESY, just because like on the G2 camp, you have Nico, you have Hunter, and you can obviously just rely on this m0NESY kid to fire off whenever you need to on like the other side of the map on a CT side hold, or I haven't watched too many of their T sides admittedly, but I assume his rating is based on his rating. He must be doing work on both sides at least consistently, even if it's not simple-esque numbers like everybody wanted you to believe he would have. So the big takeaway here is that if you guys recall back to the previous episode of this, we speculated that actually m0NESY, he's got a huge amount of pressure riding on him, and so the question is like, as long as the team finds success, doesn't really matter what numbers he gets. Hopefully he doesn't have that in his head that he needs to put up simple numbers, because he's got Nico on his team who can do almost simple numbers anyway. So yeah, I think this team's future is very, very bright, and Carlos may have actually done it. He may have actually got an award-winning, major winning roster. Depends on
I think
how soon PGL Antwerp comes around, right?
I think eventually they'll go through like more growing pains with m0NESY. At like some point they'll hit like some kind of like wall where like maybe m0NESY struggles a bit, because he's just like 16. Like ZywOo, how old is ZywOo as a rookie? Like 18, right? Because he waited a bit. And also ZywOo was just kind of like a completely different personality and player. And Simple like came out of the gate like 2013, 2014 owning, but obviously he had his own growing pains in terms of personality, especially. So I think there'll be like a couple rough events. Maybe there'll be like some kind of like rough stage of like dealing with m0NESY and like how he's integrating into the team. I think overall it'll be fine. 16 is a rookie. They'll give him like a long leash to kind of like find himself as a player, especially against these good teams. And he's already shown like what he's capable of. I think not like consistently or anything, but I did like what I saw out of m0NESY at this event already.
I want to shift this conversation a little bit to another aspect, though. The other move for G2 was that they picked up AleksiB. I think their T sides might have got worse. I actually don't think that the T sides I saw at this event looked that convincing. In fact, I thought they looked kind of uninspired, especially on Inferno when they played against Vitality. Some of the ways AleksiB likes to call is just like, oh, we have the. It's almost like when AleksiB likes on, and I think AleksiB has to break this mentally, because when he was on OG, if they got map control, I felt like he wanted to just exec. He's just like, let's not always go back, or if we go back, we're just going to take everybody with us. And so I think AleksiB kind of has a weird and maybe bad IGL habit of just calling for the set piece to come out a little too early when you have players like m0NESY and Nico who can work for a little longer in the round. Like, you don't have to worry. I think if I had a message to AleksiB, you don't have to worry about calling the strat so quickly after you get map control, because back when you had ISA and NBK and the old OG lineup, you probably felt like, shit, if we don't call this strat now, like now that we have map control, bad shit will happen because the other team is going to respond and kill us. And I think that right now his players are so good that if you have map control, sometimes just let the round kind of marinate a little bit. Let's see if you can like find any way to have an individual impose themselves a little bit more, because even if it's m0NESY or Nico or Hunter getting challenged in a mid-late round situation, they're probably going to come out on top a lot of the time. And I think that he needs to just be slower. Like let the opponents make more mistakes, because I noticed when they were against Vitality, they would get banana control and then they would just exec B. And it's like, yo, you still have a minute to go. You don't need to do this so quickly. So slow things down and just let your teammates who are very freaking good, let them just chill in this new advanced spot that you took for them with map control. So I want to see him break that. Like, that's my biggest gripe with him.
Yeah, it's just a tough habit to break, I assume, because obviously this is his first time like actually calling for a team with like this caliber of players.
Yeah.
So obviously had OG and fucking ENCE before that, which obviously also wasn't like the star-studded lineup or anything. So it's just something he'll hopefully get used to, and is hopefully I would assume he's like thinking about how he has to call differently with these types of players and like what themes are actually going to work better with them compared to what he's been doing before. And so I'm not really too worried about that, just as long as AleksiB and Xtaz are like working well together, and they're focusing on these things, and they're focusing on how AleksiB needs to change his calling, and maybe even, which kind of comes with just maybe just calling less on a team like this. Kind of letting, like you said, just letting the rounds kind of play themselves out a bit more.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a pretty big point to make that he's going to be having his own sort of carryovers, his holdovers from the OG lineup. And obviously the comparison between roster strength is pretty profound. You can say that there's a huge difference, a huge gap. The question for me is, like, how long can G2 survive that particular aspect of their T sides? Because it's so out of the meta when you think about it. When you think about execing with a minute left, like the whole meta has been bleed the CTs for everything they have because the economy is in the current state that it is. So, play it slow, poke for extremities, hopefully get a kill before all the utilities have even been thrown. So some of that's immediately wasted, stuff like that. And so, yeah, I still have perhaps irrational faith that AleksiB can change up his system, because I do think there was a pretty big difference between what he was doing with ENCE and what he did with OG. And even if it was a difference in a negative direction, perhaps based on their results, it was also a very different lineup. So I think I'm not necessarily expecting him to completely reinvent his style, but at the very least, like making the alterations that Mauisnake suggests, I don't think that's a beyond him. The question is whether or not like he's even made this observation, or if he agrees or whatever, right? So something to
I don't think it's
ask him.
I don't think it's irrational faith. I think between AleksiB, Nico, and Xtaz, one of those three is definitely going to pick up on this, and the adaptation is going to be made. It'll just probably take like a little bit longer, maybe.
All right, bye, Maui.
But yeah, Maui's out. Cool. Sick. I like how I am now Mauisnake. This is now my podcast. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. But yeah, as I was saying, I think that between those three, that one of those three will definitely pick up on it. Xtaz most likely so, in terms of being able to actually call that out and be able to tell the players that they have to change this. So I would expect that it won't take too long, maybe one tournament, especially if they go out too early in QotW or something, then they'll definitely adapt to that pretty easily.
I assume Aleksi is pretty strong-minded in terms of his calling and like doing what he wants to do, but also that doesn't mean he's like close-minded or anything. I assume so.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll be open-minded, especially it's especially different. It's not just like he's going from like a similar team that just like wants to play a completely different way. It's like you're going from like having Nico holding your extremities, like Danish Nico, to having fucking Nico holding your extremities. Like it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna assume you guys covered that part pretty well.
All good.
Okay,
no problems.
Thanks, guys. That's why we have as many people as we do on this. Okay, I think we covered. Okay, so I'll just throw out a general feeler. Like, do you guys want to talk about any other teams? I'm good with all the teams at Blast. I think we can move forward. But if there's anyone that's on the tip of your tongue,
I think like
what's your MIBR point? Mix.
No, I was gonna say.
I was
gonna say Astralis. Like, there's not much to talk about them. I think we're pretty much all on the same page still on that. It's just like I still just think that eventually you have to cut Lucky and get like an actual fucking opper. And
dude, I
still wouldn't cut ZywOo yet. I still would just get an opper first. Yeah. Or just get an opper. Just let the roles actually not be terrible in your team.
Yeah.
Like actually have something that fucking makes sense. And then if ZywOo is still washed, 3 months after that, and your opper's performing well, then maybe then it's time to look somewhere else. But it's like at the moment, I feel like the only direct easy upgrade you would have for ZywOo that would make sense is like Shush from Heroic. And besides that, I don't really see anyone else where it's worth like just replacing them like one for one right now.
Okay, I think, dude, I think the role overlap with Blame F and ZywOo, and then even Lucky on how he wants to play two side rounds is too much. I noticed Lucky started running in more though at this event. I noticed he started going in.
A good one too. I always forget Valorant is Danish. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, all day would be good. But yeah, like a simple Farlig angle would be better. Even oh god, I'm forgetting his name because he's faded into irrelevancy. Who's the guy from Copenhagen Flame?
Which one?
Which one?
The guy Opper, the Opper on Copenhagen Flames.
Nico Dawes.
Nico Dawes. Yeah, that guy. He looked really good at the major. So he could be. I don't even know if he's that good. Honestly, I've only seen him play at the major pretty much. So
as far as I'm concerned, I'll say
Farlig's better
though.
I literally think like just get Farlig. I don't know if he's gonna be amazing or anything, but he's gonna be like an opper, he's gonna op. That's all I want at the moment.
He's gonna op. Like Glaive won't consider taking the gun away from him, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like where the bar is for me at the moment.
This is okay. Here's my hot take on Astralis: is that Glaive is currently the best and most impactful player for them. That's basically my hottest take. It's not even that. Not even including his in-game leading, I think he's actually just straight up doing the best thing for the team almost all the time, and not everybody else has the team's best interest in mind. So
Dude, this guy's like holding W. This guy's opping. This guy's calling. Like
yeah,
he's
does
doing
it.
what he can.
He does he does the most. He does the most, man. Okay.
Astra loss.
Astra. Astra is
Astra.
lost. Yeah. Okay, let's do the. Actually, I want to talk about the format. We talked about the format last time.
Yep.
We kind
Dog
of
shit.
yeah. I don't think this was. I think this was a bit of an L from last. A rare L.
How dare Navi still qualify after losing to
is-
Mibber?
Like
Get out.
towards the end, I stopped paying as much attention. Like I saw like there was like the round 2 day where like NIP played Navi and Astralis played Big, and then like 2 days later, I went and checked HLTV and I saw like the exact same matchups.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? Like, it's
Yeah.
like this is, and I just didn't care at that point. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was just, I didn't really bother to like watch the same exact matchups for a second time and for 2 days.
I think
The
people would play each other up to 3 times. What's the
Yes,
most?
Theoretically,
I think the most.
yeah.
I think the most
Yes.
they could have played each other was 3 times, right? In this, so yeah. What were you gonna say, Note?
I mean, I was just gonna say, firstly, the best of one format was pretty dog shit. I'm not a huge fan of it. None of the
Mhm.
matches really felt like they
Mhm.
had stakes to them.
They,
Like
they didn't matter. None of it even
even
mattered.
going out last in your group meant nothing until you reached the second stage.
Navi came
So
out last in their group, and they still qualified for the finals. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
And even on top of that, I think like OG won their first 3 matches in their group, but where were they going with this? No, I'm totally trolling. Never mind. Ignore that point. But the thing that bugged me was that you when you played the gauntlet bracket or whatever, you could still, even if you lost your last match in the gauntlet bracket, you could still play the same team that you just played in round 2 in the last chance bracket, and that made no sense. Like at the very least, if you're gonna run this sort of format, scramble the teams in the
Nip
last chance
Navi
bracket.
played again. They
Yep.
just played it. They played. They got to play a rematch.
Same with
G2
Astralis, Big.
It could have been G2. No, it couldn't have been. No. Yeah. Big and Astralis. Yeah. That just that happened again. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
And
it was
even
a
just in
lot.
best of ones, Big had to go up against, or no, FaZe had to go up against Vitality twice, for example. So like, I mean, that's the best of one, so it's over quicker. But still, like, come on.
Yeah, okay, I'll say this. If they were to correct some things, I really think that the groups, I think this, what they tried basically making the group stage the same as what they did with last year's group stages in the the fall groups, spring groups. But what they did is that, or this feels kind of weird to me, is that in the groups back then, if you went through the upper bracket, if you won your first 2 BO3s, you would be qualified for the spring finals or the fall finals.
Yes.
But now you can win both of your kind of upper bracket games. You can get to the finals, and this is basically what happened to Vitality in my eyes, basically. And then they lost to FaZe, and it just moved them lower in this gauntlet thing. And it almost feels like, shouldn't you be rewarded? I almost feel like you should just take out the grand final of every group, actually.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
there's-
that game was like pointless to me.
it feels really pointless, and it feels like there's usually a reward for making it through a winner's bracket without going to the losers. And there's no reward here for doing that. Maybe they gave veto. I'd have to guess. I'd hope, just for benefit of the doubt, I would say that they gave a veto advantage. But there's no reason that you should be playing for a grand final when you already beat, like, Vitality shouldn't have to play FaZe again after they beat FaZe in a BO1, because now you're putting them in through another BO1 high variance matchup to get seeding. Like, just end it. Just cut it off. No final game of these groups, please.
So this is actually the point I was trying to make earlier. Navi lost both their group matches. Then they won one gauntlet match, lost one, and won the last chance. So they went 2 for 2 in wins and losses, and still qualified. OG needed to win 4 matches to qualify as the first place team from their group and from the gauntlet bracket.
You're right. They won
Literally,
more.
Tell me how this
matches.
makes sense.
They won more matches and they're in the same position. That's so. Oh.
Tell me how this makes sense. That was the
Yeah.
point I was trying to make
This
earlier.
is
It actually
this
makes
is just
no sense.
overcomplicating shit so much.
Yeah, I didn't love the look of this, I will say.
I never see it again.
I hope they rethink things. I didn't like this very much, I'll be honest. Okay, I think we can move off the blast format.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple upcoming events, and let's look into those and let's kind of give our loose predictions. So we might, I think there's a solid chance we'll do another show before Katowice gets rolling. Yeah, that thing ends in 20 days. So yeah, we'll do another one, but let's at least do the ESL Challenger event coming up. Okay, so we got this ahead of us. We got 8 teams there. We got Furia, VP, Movistar, Dignitas, Heat, which is former Double Pony, Complexity, m0NESY, and Order. Do you guys think this is where Complexity get their shit together? The groups are not released yet, so we don't know who, or at least unless it's somewhere that I'm not looking. We don't know who's playing whom. We don't know who is playing whom. But I say whomst as ironically, and it's now just entered my lexicon. But we don't know who is playing whom. But do you guys think Complexity's making it out of groups?
Fucking hope
I would
so.
say they make it out of groups.
What if their group, though? What if their group is VP, Movistar, and
Sure,
Heat?
yeah.
No, Furia won't be in the same group as VP, so I'm making it slightly realistic here.
True.
Yeah. VP, Movistar, Heat, Complexity. Do they make it top 2 in that?
Are the invited teams even able to be in the same group? Or?
This is what I was about to ask.
It's gonna be 2 and 2, I think.
Okay.
It does, right? It has to be 2 and 2.
Yeah, it has. To, it should be 2 and 2.
Yeah. I think Complexity make it out of their group as long as Virtus Pro is not in the same group.
Okay, yeah. I mean, once you get VP in your group, you just know that there's only room for one more team.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, I'm looking at the other teams here, and I see. So obviously, Heat is the only team of the qualified teams that I think could actually seriously give Complexity a run for their money. But it also depends on how many games they have to play. Where it's like, is it a double round robin or just a single? I don't know.
It's GSL. It's GSL.
Okay.
It's BO1 openers, and then it's opener winners BO1s, and then it's going to be elimination deciders or BO3s.
Okay, well, that changes things a little bit. I still think that the only team that is from a qualifier that Complexity would topple over to would be Heat, and that's even still contentious. I think Heat are actually, a fairly legit tier 2 team. The question is, like, who would they be able to? Would they be able to also defeat one of the invited teams? I don't really know why Movistar Riders got invited personally. I mean, I don't know the background.
This is just this is basically teams that didn't get to Katowice, but then some reason VP and Furia are there. I don't know why.
Well, all right. Well, whatever the reason.
Well, Furia definitely needs to play something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I actually think Complexity could beat any of the 3 invited teams that aren't VP. So I think they could beat Movistar or Dignitas. That's why I was saying I think if VP's in their group, then they could have some trouble. But with any of the other teams, then they have a pretty decent shot at making it out.
I'm not sure about the Furia comparison because I do think Furia ought to beat this team. The question is, just based on recent form, Furia also are still a bit unknown, right? So like that's also a question.
They got fucking shit on.
They lost to Whistler Krakow,
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what you think is going on in that camp. The HLTV interview with one of the Fury players recently mentioned that
safe.
It was like he was saying that we built this lineup so that we can win trophies. Well, this would be one to if you don't get out of groups here, that's pretty bad, obviously.
Yeah,
so
I could see one of these teams taking down VP in a final. It's an online.
Really? I mean, anything can kind of happen online.
I could see Fury having a good day and taking them down. Or
someone check on Alex. You just said VP could lose.
No, like
is he okay?
They could lose in a BO1 opener. That's about it to me. For me,
I could see if Furia starts clicking, I can see Furia having a good day with this group of players and taking down VP in a BO3, especially online.
Dude, I feel like
how they looked against Wizla. I don't. Yeah, just like you guys didn't see fucking MIBR taking.
Oh my god, he's gonna hold this over us for the rest of the.
Well, like I said, anything can never happen. You just gotta believe.
I think Mauisnake is pending a desync again.
What a position really to freeze in. That's an amazing pose to freeze in. Actually, that's a screen capable pose right there.
That's going in the thumbnail.
I'm grabbing a screenshot of that.
Oh no, I I had an ugly lag. Did I have an ugly?
No, it's
lag?
perfect. You were
just
like,
ugly. It was great.
It's
It was
pretty
perfect.
great. This is.
I
this
saw
is
it.
the
I
pose,
saw it
like,
lagging. I saw it lagging, and I was like, no.
That's the pose you frozen.
So I just couldn't. I don't know.
It somehow turned out perfect.
Yeah.
It was actually.
You-
insane.
Oh, wasn't that? It's not that bad.
There's an episode of Friends where I
would've
forget which guy on Friends is they're trying to take like an ugly picture of him. He's so photogenic that they surprised him while he's like trying to eat a nacho chip or something, and they think they're gonna get him with like and instead he's just like, and then in the photos.
I can't believe Kronogo, you didn't strike me as a guy that watched Friends. at all.
That's probably one of
Man.
the only episodes I've seen, and it's just because my mom watched it when I was a kid. So
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. There we
That's
go.
my
I feel like we should have all like mirrored his pose for the thumbnail when he was frozen.
Nice. The only thing that would have changed this or made it better is if I flexed. I should have
Yeah.
flexed my muscles. But okay. I think we let's do this. Let's just do this for who do we think is actually coming in second at this event? Do you guys think it's Complexity?
That's
I'm
so
with
hard to
Movie
say
Star.
without seeing the groups.
Yeah.
My
of
guess is
course.
Movie Star.
Movistar just seemed like such a solid, like known quantity that they're just not gonna lose to teams that are worse than them, like almost ever. They play also. I'm gonna be real. Movistar plays some of the most boring Counter-Strike out there. It's just so standard. It's just so like I don't get excited about any. Like it's basically like, oh, is Sun Payas gonna find an opening kill? No. Okay, so is Mopaz gonna get 2 kills in a situation where he had to be a little bit more aggressive because that he realized something needed to get done? Wait, that didn't happen. Well, they're just playing out a basic round now. Like that's like the most excited I can get about Movistar. And people say VP is boring for their style. Like I think their style is so unique and cool and interesting because nobody else does it, and you never know what you're getting round to round. But with Movistar, I know what's going to happen every round. Like no exceptions. It's over.
It's kind of how Dignitas is as well. Or at least how they used to be.
At least Dignitas have name value, so like when people do cool things, it's like, hey, that's Forest. That's,
Freiburg's just gonna hit like DreamHack Valencia 2015 levels and carry Dignitas to second place over here.
amazing.
Yeah, Dignitas is literally
Um,
always interesting to watch because like Forest is there, like you said. It's like I can get down with this. Like this is great.
Yeah, I could just watch it. I could just have it on.
you know what would be
it's fine.
better for Movistar Riders is if they had some disconnecting British player. Then you'd never know what's going to happen. Just saying.
Wow, I know who that is. We know
All
who that
back.
is.
I would say Complexity come in second here. Actually, I will take
Rattlesnake.
them to come in second.
I'm gonna do Complexity. Make it top 4, but then they lose to Heat in the quarterfinal. No, wait. That would mean Heat came first in their group. No, that's not possible. They're gonna lose to
EC.
whoever came in first in the other side of the group because Complexity are gonna come in second place in their group, and then they're gonna lose in the quarterfinal game. Yep, that's my pick.
Semifinal.
Semifinal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Semifinal game. Okay,
Get it right.
get it right. Okay, let's see. I think that's we'll do a pod before Katowice. I'm almost sure of it. But if no, we'll do a pod. We'll do a pod before this.
Well, I mean, 7 days from now is the day before the play-in starts, or we
Yeah.
can do one between the play-in and the main stage too.
let's do. Yeah, let's do. Okay, how about this? We got play-in teams. Oh God, there's so many. Do we have to pick half? Do we have to pick half to be like who makes it through the play-in?
Yes, correct. 8 of them make it through.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Is that's for another day. That's for another show. We'll do another show. That's too much. That's just too much, and we'll get it, guys. So don't worry about that. And we'll also probably recap whatever happens in the Challenger.
This
and
plane
also-
is going to be a fucking
it's a
massacre.
nightmare. It's a nightmare, dude. There's gonna be some teams. Big's not gonna make it. Big's not making it. I love Big.
Big's not making it.
Something bad's gonna happen to Big. I just smell it. And I'm rooting for Big so it's because I'm rooting for Big so hard that I'm just saying this now. I'm just worried. I'm just worried for them. That's it. Okay, let's get into questions then. Let's get into Patreon questions. No, wait. Question of the week first. Question of the week, then Patreon questions. Okay. Is that how we normally do it? Is that the order? That's the order.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think so. I think that's
Okay,
Yeah,
question-
it is.
Question of the week. Question of the week is when, like, what is the criteria, or when should an IGL, or should an IGL ever win an MVP award? And second part to this question, when should we give a coach, or can we even tell if we should give a coach a lot of credit for a tournament victory? Mix, Mr. Coach, Mr.
Well,
also looking
feel
for
like-
GM positions, Mr. Yeah.
I'm looking for a lot of things, and also not looking for a lot of things.
Okay.
well,
all right.
I feel like
writing
I feel
like a Tinder bio.
I'm looking for. I'm looking to expand my paradigms, or
Looking
something
for
else that
GF.
he said. Yeah.
L4
looking
GF.
to expand my spirituality through esports.
There you go.
Looking for GF to go to When We
I
Were
mean-
Young festival with.
There is like a I mean, some is kind of example of an IGL winning the MVP
Sure.
award, because let's be honest, MSL, like you said,
There
had
it
like a
is.
1.06 rating at that event, and part
Yeah,
of the
I
reason they
know,
got it
so low.
because people were like, holy shit, MSL is like a genius against Astralis.
Yeah.
I do feel like that was like kind of, so I don't know. It's weird because like there has to be like a really strong narrative that almost kind of builds up just like out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Like with a coach, you'd have to have like someone, like a player, like early in the event be like, dude, our coach's anti-strats were so fucking nuts. Like
Yeah.
he's just winning the game for us, and then like everyone just keeps talking about it for the entire event, and like people just keep noticing like anti-strats or something, and people are just like, it just becomes like a fucking like fanatic or something. Like but I just can't really see that ever actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
like with an IGL, it has to be someone that like kind of has that reputation. It has to be like a Kerrigan or something that has like a good event, and then maybe they're just scraping by these wins against teams that are better than them. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like with MSL, it was like this like weird narrative where like he was opping for the first time and performing like a lot better than he usually does, and he was specifically like beating Astralis. Like he's like a lot of his good matches were coming specifically against Astralis, and there was like this whole narrative that got built up. So, yeah.
Okay.
What gets
Okay.
me about the coach angle is that you would basically, I don't think it could ever actually be given to the coach by like the tournament or by HLTV. It would have to be like, the player receives it and then it's like, really, I'd be nothing without my coach. So I'm giving it to him as like a ceremonial gesture, because there's no way that we can say that the coach had a more of an impact, and to the point where he was the most valuable source of impact on the team in the game. More so than all of the players, I think. That's probably the biggest stumbling block that you'd get for that. As far as IGLs go, I feel like they would need to by conventional standards, they would need to also be fraggers, probably. But the question really comes out to, like, how much can we know about their comms and their calls and their mid-round reads and stuff? How much can we, as the general person just watching it, how easily can we tap into that? Because otherwise you're going to have a real tough sell making it feel like it was deserved, unless he also popped off statistically. And I mean, like the MSL example goes,
It also has to be like,
that.
it also has to be like a situation where like his teammates aren't really like fragging.
Yeah.
Like, most events. Like it's like one of those like weird like you're consistently having like one of those weird series where like no one on the team is actually like standing out in terms of like how they're performing. Everyone's just like super average, but you're somehow just like winning all these like close games. It'd have to be something along those lines, I think. Because generally, even if like you're performing well as an IGL and people are giving you a lot of credit, if someone on the team has like a 1.20 rating, they're just gonna get the MVP pretty much every time, and it's hard to argue against it.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to award someone like a coach the MVP for one. Because they're not actually a player on the server, and it's always going to be really hard to measure that impact, especially if you can't like actually listen in on the comms at all or get a sense of what that is. As like trying to award that MVP without being part of the tournament, because at least if you're working the tournament, you can be in production and hear what some of the comms are like and sort of get that measure. In terms of awarding an MVP from the outside, it becomes so hard to actually gauge that without being able to hear any of that information. So I think both in terms of awarding the IGL and awarding the coach an MVP, they're both pretty difficult to do if there's not a same or elevated level of performance on the server simultaneously. Unless, of course, you are Hundun or Zoner and or Eye in the Sky, etc.
In the sky. Radar from sky. Yes.
Radar from sky.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be the only cases. But yeah, I think usually it's going to end up going to a player regardless. Unless, I guess, as you were saying, maybe if there's some form of interview that comes out that specifically gives all of the credit to a coach or something like that in a win, then maybe. But a lot of the time, MVPs are decided relatively quick after one of the big tournament ends, so there wouldn't really be time for that.
Yeah. I would probably say that even when players give a lot of credit to their coaches, they still find ways to people like the general public find ways to undervalue certain coaches that just don't have big names, like Groove, for example. I feel like that dude still does not get any credit. Or the coach of VP Dastan, like no one says anything about this guy.
Didn't
at
even know
all.
that guy existed, to be honest.
Has anybody mentioned this guy on a desk or anything ever? I don't think so.
You're the
I'm sorry.
first.
Coaching esports is so fickle, like, because like in real sports, like you obviously have total control. A lot of times you're like calling the play, so it's like you're the coach, so you get credit for like all the wins. And then like in Counter Strike, it's like you're like guessing, like maybe like people are just based their decisions based off like nothing almost. It's like, this guy's a great coach because he wins a lot. And there's like another coach that like wins a lot, and it's like, well, he just has good players. He's not that sick. And it's like, what's the difference actually? Like, it's, I don't know, it's a bit weird.
It almost feels like for any of these conversations to be taken seriously about how good a coach or IGL is, you almost need like not star players essentially. Like basically, I think one of the reasons Astralis got such a good rep, and Glaive and Zonic in particular, was because even though and this is wrong to believe this, that Astralis' players weren't world-class caliber player, like top 5, etc. Like it's almost like Magisk was one of the best anchors in the world. Dupree was one of the best aggressive riflers in the world, but they never reached that level that was Nico, ZywOo, simple. So it kind of makes it easier to be like, they must be a really good caller or really good coach, because the frag distribution was just very even. Because their teamwork was so good. So that's kind of a thing with Heroic to me, where I think that actually you probably I don't rate Cadian that highly as a player, but I think he probably is a pretty damn good IGL for them to put some of this together.
Yep.
And then also like with coaches, man, I had a fucking point and I've like completely lost it in my head. Just within those 2 seconds. All right, no.
I had one that I forgot about too. The only other element I could see that coaches getting an MVP would be is if they could still IGL on the server as well. They could back in the day. That would be a scenario where I could possibly see them sort of getting it just based on the actual overall level of play on the server and them being able to call that. But that's obviously definitely not going to be allowed now, considering they can't even say nice at a major anymore. So
you guys remember FaZe
say
at the major, and Innershine was like screaming, running towards all of his players after every W. That was a good time. Too bad we'll never see that again.
No touchy.
I was gonna say, I wish we knew like more about like what coaches control their rosters and like what rosters are maybe just controlled by a GM above them or just things like that. Because I mean, as a coach or like as a GM, like one of the most valuable things is like actually putting together a good roster and getting good players. Like if you're the coach and you're controlling the roster, just because like you picked up like a couple star players that are insane and they're just like the reason your team's good, well, you still get credit for that because you're still the one that picked them up, even if it was like an obvious move, right? So I wish there was like more transparency overall about who is controlling like most of these rosters. Like it'd be
that would make these decisions easier for like deciding who's great and not.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did miss one thing, and this is why chat is sometimes useful. Not saying that
the major
sarcastically or ironically. Like I have mostly enjoyed our chat, actually almost every episode that we've been running the show live. Is that we didn't talk about the Antwerp major coming up, that it's by PGL again. So I think the controversy here is that PGL had some difficulties with running the last major, and saying some is even probably an understatement, but it's like they can't be as bad. They can only
they actually put a job posting out for audio engineers, so there's
they did not.
Yeah,
they did. It's on their website.
No way. Oh my god. Okay,
that's still a joke that just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah,
the world's first deaf audio engineer.
That was the best copy pasta of that major by
if you guys really want to laugh, you can go into the Reddit thread about anything related to PGL. Specifically the one that was talking about this job posting. And
I need someone in chat to post that.
There were some real funny comments where they were like, that copy pasta showed up, and then the replies were like, "Oh my god, how do you do it? Do you listen to the vibrations? You feel the vibrations?" Guys, you can't seriously believe that's real. Oh man, they did.
No,
they did.
No, they did. They did. What do you guys have any? You NA folk have any opinion on Antwerp or Belgium as the location?
I hear they make good waffles, but those have carbs, so skipping this major.
All I know about Belgium is they have a pretty good racetrack there, and
okay.
That's about it.
Both very Counter-Strike relevant point guys.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. No. Do you know anything about?
Also, Scream is from there.
Belgium.
I have no idea about Belgium, but I think apparently it's a very good central location for Europe. So I mean,
it
should be good for travel. Yeah.
It's so convenient for me now that I'm in London. It's so easy for me to get there. I think I actually just take a train for a couple hours or something like that. It's amazing. It's actually I can map this right now, but I think that. For the PGL side, like they just simply, I lied. It's actually, that's because I'm leaving now, which is so late, so I'd have delays and stuff. But I think I looked it up before, and it was like 3 hours or something for me.
Yeah, but makes sense.
Yeah, so it's super easy for me. This makes me feel like I'm almost surely gonna go, and I'd say this like, I'm not saying this is like talent even necessarily. Like,
sure,
I mean, obviously I'd want to, but it's more like I would just go. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there no matter what.
Another.
I'm one way or another. I'm going to this. That's basically how I feel about it.
You know what would be really?
I felt when
Go ahead.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say. All right, you do it. I'm out. See you guys. GG.
All right, peace, guys.
I was gonna say this is how I felt when I was with United at ESL New York 2019, and they wouldn't send me to New York. I was like, well, I'm going by myself, and I'm just gonna go steal one of your passes, and then I'm gonna go backstage. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, what's Perdogo's point?
I was just gonna say that when it comes to, I think I lost my point actually. Fuck.
Oh my god.
Everybody's just getting. This is what happens when we approach the 2-hour mark.
No, it's what happens when I literally walk off the camera. But that was just for a bit, and then I actually did forget what I was gonna say. We were talking about Antwerp, Belgium,
friends, traveling. Alex, the talent member. Alex definitely not.
Thank you. No, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah. So what I was gonna say, this could be a real nice way to revive the reputation of PGL, because this was obviously a 2-package deal. Like what people are saying behind the scenes is that this is long ago agreed that like PGL will get 2 majors back to back, and so it's not like Valve are like, great job with this major. They were like, there was a major? Oh yeah, that major thing for that CSGO thing. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, you can have 2 of them. So that was basically how the deal went. I'm pretty sure that's like verbatim.
Yeah,
where did you read that? Did I miss that somewhere?
No, that's what people are saying in general on talk shows, is that like the Thorns and Richard Lewises of the world are saying, like, the PGL most likely got a double-decker deal where they got both majors back to back when they were originally negotiating, right? And so if that is true, then you can't really lay the blame of I would say, like, maybe don't have the same TO back to back ahead of time, maybe vet them, or maybe actually respond to the first one before you decide to say, because there's a lot of community ill will towards PGL after their handling for the production. This could be a nice way to revise that, though, because if this major PGL, so they had their throwback major, the last one, if this major is now like, here's all the talent from the online era, Scronders, right? Laundry, whatever his name is. And then you get Harry and Hugo, and, you get all those people at Mauisnake even, sneak some people up there. That could be cool. That could be like, oh, wow, now we're getting like the new blood, right? The old dogs and the new blood sort of back to back. That could be something that I think the community would be pretty happy about. And it shouldn't necessarily even be done to appease the community specifically, but it's more like, these are deserving talent. They missed out in the previous major. Now we can have the whole thing. So,
okay,
do your laundry.
I'm kind of interested. I'm not going to comment too much on this, but what would you guys want for talent in terms of, like, don't say you don't want somebody, but who would you guys want to see? Would you guys want to see Shocks? Like, people are talking about her.
I do.
Okay.
Shocks would be good. I'd like to see Freya as well. If they're gonna, I'd like to see them do 2 hosts, honestly, and have Freya and Shocks, because doing 1 host and having the sort of days that talent had before was a little bit much. So I think two hosts would also help change up the broadcast a little bit, and Freya definitely deserves the opportunity with the amount of. I think she has really extensive knowledge in terms of, and the way she actually holds dust down is she's fantastic at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those two would be really good as hosts that sort of rotate. Obviously, I think Maniac needs to be on the analyst desk, hands down. There's no way that an analyst desk should not have him at this point. I think aside from that, it'd be cool to see you there, obviously.
Thank you.
A little
Thanks.
shout out to Alex.
To Pernogo.
And then obviously, I think
Pernogo's the audio
want to
engineer.
see like some of like the fresher caster duos like Lander, Scrawny, Hugo,
Yeah,
Harry,
of course.
Yeah.
maybe Dinko and Haka, if they want to give
Oh,
a nice
wow.
rub to someone even newer. But yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah.
Well,
that'd
we
be cool.
went like in the complete opposite direction for the last major, like total retro, which I can respect. I don't have a problem with it or anything. But it'd be nice to kind of go the other direction, kind of give like someone like really fresh, like Dinko and Haka, like that kind of like spotlight.
I feel like Dinko and Haka wouldn't get it over like Sponge and Machine though.
That was the only caveat I was gonna say is that like
That's a hard duo to leave out.
But if we're going with the identity of like old blood, new blood, like what Mix was saying, that could be pretty neat. I think.
Were Sponge and Machine at the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah. They did the finals.
They did the final.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see that. I'll comment just on the point Pernogo made about the PGL duo thing, or I mean not the back-to-back thing. Like I think I knew about a couple months ago that PGL was going to get the next major. Actually, I didn't say that obviously in public, but I'm pretty sure like this has been known. Yeah, this has been known for a while. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to involve some new talent. I think like Richard, for example, has kind of already put it out publicly that he's not going to do it. So that's one less person. I don't know if Thorin's. I think Thorin probably wants to do it. So I feel like he would. I feel like he's going to be included in this. Actually, I think I can't really speak about some of the older caster duos because I don't really know what the landscape is like necessarily. And even if I did, I wouldn't really want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I knew the leaks, I wouldn't be able to leak. I wouldn't be leaking. So that's all I have to say about that.
Everything I've said is factual, and that is the talent lineup.
Wow, I can't believe Haka and Dinko are casting the grand finals. That's
yes.
Pretty cool. That's a pretty.
They're casting not just the grand final; they're casting the entire playoffs.
I mean, they casted the last LAN. They casted the V4 grand finals. So it only makes sense, right? If you're looking at the last LAN, that Haka and Dinko should just do the next LAN. Like that's just obvious, actually. Okay.
In chat, is Maui behind Danish leaks?
Yeah, that was my account actually, and I turned it off because I was like, I can't keep asking Fesser for information anymore. So
It was literally all just coming from Fesser. No one else.
Yeah, exactly. It's just him. Okay. Someone said Stunna. I would like to see Stunna as a host. I feel like he got kind of shafted in the last one a little bit. Not that like I mean, I think Richard did great, but I also think that if they did a double host, it should have been Stunna as the second host for my money. It could have been like Stunna or Freya, but I feel like Stunna's been really one of the top hosts for me for a while in this space. So yeah, that's my take on it. Let's get into Patreon questions though. Let's get into Patreon queues and wrap this baby up. We'll do one. So we're changing the sub questions where we're doing just one sub question. We're picking the best one. I think somebody already asked one in chat and it was pretty good. So if you're a sub and you want to get a question in, write that in. But it's just kind of like we just kind of got too many, and the Patreon is where we actually just make more money. So that's just sub to the Patreon if you want to get your questions in. So we have 3 Patreon questions, if I'm not mistaken. No, we have 4. First one, I'm assuming these are in the order you put them in, Pernogo, right? Okay, so starting with Bill, we've got, do we think the idea of an IGL dictating everything will slowly be less and less of a thing? It seems more IGLs are saying the whole team is playing more of a role these days with decision making, and whereas in the past this was seen as a team losing faith in the IGL, these days it seems to happen anywhere. Thoughts? So it's like in between nowadays. Yeah, what do you got?
I was gonna say like I don't think that's like necessarily true. Like I don't know. That seems like something that like you always have to have like one stable leader that actually whose vision like you're working towards. Like you can't just have it be like, oh, it's like five hands all fucking in the pot, you know, doing their all things, because then you just get a mishmash of ideas and no one's like moving in the same direction. So you always need like a solid IGL like moving in the same direction. I mean, I would say that like it's probably pretty rare these days that you have an IGL that's just like a dictator that's just like completely dictating the entire round the entire time. Maybe like how Zeus maybe used to do back in the day or something like that. And most of the time nowadays, especially with like so many just amazing like star players, it just makes sense to, when you have these guys on these extremities or like on their own sites, you're taking more into account like their own ideas and what they want to do and what they like to do. So it's always just about finding. It's just different from team to team, really. I don't think it's like a meta change or anything. It's just the players that you have, like the style of leadership that you have. But at the end of the day, you're always going to need an IGL that has the majority of say in the team, and that's the direction that you're consistently moving towards.
I think that's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I would agree with that. I don't think there's much to add.
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing would be that at a top level, you'll have a little bit less of that than you have maybe from teams that are coming up and need a little bit more micromanaging per player.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
at the top level, there's still always going to be some player that dictates the pace of where the game is going. So regardless, I don't think it's something that's just going to stop being a thing or become less of a thing to scale.
I will say that
like
depends on your style of calling to some degree, right? Because if you just have a loose style, then you're basically, your dictation is just like, hey, go and do something. It's like you're telling some artist to like do some impressionist painting of whatever that comes to the mind or something, as opposed to saying, no, you got to color in the lines. So I think that also puts a different thing here.
Yeah.
Probably like the
Yeah.
closest thing to that would probably be like Boomich. And even then, I'm not like, I don't really know exactly how NaVi's calls work, but Boomich is like a rare scenario where he has like Simple on his team and he has like Blade as a coach, so it's like already like a lot to handle.
Okay. All right, next one. EasyPete. I think it's a shame what happened to Gade on Big. On an unrelated note, who is just too handsome to not be playing CS at the moment? Jeez. I think Gade's already the answer, like, for handsome. There's some handsome players that are still in the game. I guess Device.
Yeah, who else is? Yeah,
Device is
Device, I guess.
Dude, Gade is just a work of art, though.
Yeah, I think Gade is actually way more handsome than Device. I'm not gonna lie. If I saw a Device at a club or a bar, I'd just be like, okay, it's pretty
That's
decent.
Tom Cruise.
No, I'd be like, that's a pretty decent looking dude. But then I'd be like, oh shit, Gade's in the club. I gotta hide my girl.
Yeah.
Like we gotta move forward. Honey, we gotta go to the next club over.
We gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah.
If you saw Device in a bar and Cold Zero walked up to Device in that bar, then you're in trouble.
What is the backstory for this
Wait,
one?
you haven't heard?
Cold Zero-
Didn't
Cold Zero's
Cold
kinda
Zero
short.
make Device like cry in a bar or something?
Yeah,
before?
it was some
This is
club
it.
environment.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I
Sounds
swear
like a
this
fun
is-
time.
I was looking for the roster shuffle page to see what other teams have players, but
Yeah.
or like what other teams are or what other players aren't playing.
Players. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's hard to remember sometimes.
But I can't find it, so oh well.
Yeah, I think Device and Gate are probably there. I think
Yeah,
I
because
think
you're
I'd put
really
my
narrowing
opinion.
it down when you say handsome and also not playing. So
Yeah,
there's not too many
Yeah.
to pick from, right?
yeah. I mean FNX,
That's
I
true.
guess. I mean, but he's kind
FNX
of
is
playing.
back on Last
I mean,
Dance. What do you mean?
Yeah,
my
he's
former
kinda
teammate,
playing.
HS is a pretty handsome guy.
ESL
H-
ranked 18 team or something.
HS.
Last
Oh
Dance.
my god, that's so ridiculous. HS is playing right now. He's on I forgot what
Is it?
team he's on, but he's on a team. I saw them playing on HL TV or something like that recently. I forgot what team though.
I could find it.
Did you guys see
The last time he
the-
played was in December. What are you talking about?
I think I saw them maybe on a Liquipedia page, and I went through like an upcoming tournament. Maybe I clicked his name recently on a page that
And
was
you saw
relevant.
something.
I saw
Yeah.
something on that page.
Okay.
I don't know what I saw on that page.
Therefore, HS doesn't count. Get fucked,
So
idiot.
Levadia. So he's on Levadia. I don't know what this team is playing coming
God
up, but
bless you.
I don't know where I saw it. Maybe are you gonna make me click through these Pinnacle series? Like I'm just
Please, no.
going through all of them now.
Next.
Like no, he's playing something soon. I know that. So HS is around. firsoch says, where do you place ZywOo on your top of all time players list for CS:GO? That is that could be a potentially very lengthy discussion, and I almost don't want to just answer that like offhandedly, because I think it's safe to say for me he's like very safe to say top 7 all time. But like I don't know where on that he is.
I'm putting him top 3, maybe top
You
2.
think really? You really
All
think
time players?
No, dude, he
Yeah,
can't
Bob's
be
just that fucking good, dude.
Here's my
I'm not-
case against top 2 is that he hasn't won enough stuff yet. Like, okay, I'll say this: Kenny S has won more. Kenny S has won a major
That's fair,
and
fair.
like 6 or 7 S tier lands. On top of that, ZywOo has won like 4 S tier
But
lands so
still,
far, something like
I
that.
don't know, I just think
so.
that 'cause it's like Simple and ZywOo are the only players to hit that level, like that kind of god tier.
It's
status.
a question of what do you stack
Kenny
up?
S made them
But
change
for
the
how
game.
long?
Kenny
Yeah,
S
what
made them
victory?
change the
Kenny S
game.
was, yeah, but Kenny S was like for like 3 months.
No,
It's not
it
the
was
same.
definitely a little longer than that. It was
A
definitely
little
longer. Than
longer, 4 months.
Also,
Yeah,
you're putting him above Device then?
Yeah.
Even with the consistency of how long Device is on top, the majors that he won?
maybe, man.
It's kind of
Maybe, man.
curious.
It depends.
I
It
don't
depends
know.
on the criteria. Depends on the
Yeah.
criteria.
Well, because that's the thing is it
That's
depends. Do
true.
you
We
stack
do have
up?
to define.
Yeah, do you stack
what
up
it
like
means.
accomplishments, winning trophies, performing well across a longer period of time, or do you just say absolute amount of skill on display versus absolute competition? Because obviously Kenny S wasn't playing against the competition we have now. So
in
still
terms of
think
absolute level.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go.
I was just going to say that Device would be above ZywOo for now, but with a combination of ZywOo maintaining his form up until this point and Device falling down the way that he has since the nip move, it's not looking like that will
Especially-
remain for so long.
Especially considering Vitality's going to win the next major, so ZywOo's going to have that trophy real soon.
But what if he doesn't win MVP? What if
He'll win
it's
the MVP. It's fine.
What if it's Masuta? Just kidding. I almost couldn't say that with a straight face.
Then I don't know. Congrats to him.
then good for Masuda. Okay, yeah, moving on. Okay, well, does anybody have him outside of top 5? Like, I think he might be 5th for me. Might be maybe 5th.
I don't think I could live with myself as ZywOo outside of the top 5.
No, he's definitely not out of the top 5 for me either.
Okay.
I'd place him either 4th or 5th.
He's like 17th
Yeah, I think he's fifth.
best.
I think he's fifth for me.
Obviously, top 5 is
Like
easy.
getting world number 1 in your rookie year just puts you already into just fucking insane status.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
2
crazy.
back-to-back number 1s, but one of them was in the online era, which
Yeah, true.
which I've expressed before does count for me. So that doesn't. I also don't even know if he really was number 1 that year in my eyes. I thought it was simple, but so that's.
Are you disagreeing with the HLTV top 20?
Once again,
I'm out.
once again
I'm out.
I am disagreeing with the list. It's not gospel. It is not the gospel. I'm the New Testament, baby. I'm the New Testament.
I am esports.
I am
Same
esports.
energy.
I am esports. I am the list. I'm the list. I mean, basically, Peter is saying I'm the list. That's what he's saying.
That is true.
Yeah.
He is saying I'm the list. So, let's do the next question. I think firsoch, I don't know. I think we would need a long talk and like a really detailed back and forth about where he would be, but I think it's safe to say 5. I might even go as I really might even go as low as 6 though. I really might do that. But it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. I don't know if I
Probably
could.
not.
I think the thing is I care about era. I care about like the time period that someone did something in, not just absolute
Yeah.
skill, because or else then you just can't like people are just getting better every year and you just kind of can't like people are getting better faster than they were before also because of the amount of resources out there. So it's hard to like get right would definitely be in my top 6 or 7 for sure. Even though you watch back those old games and you're like, this dude would be the 120th best player in the world right now. If
Oh
even
my
that,
God.
if even that, no, it's not even an exaggeration. But he only had 1,000 hours in the game. He only had 1,000 hours in the game. How could you hold that against him, against these kids that have like 15k hours? m0NESY has like 15k hours or something.
True.
Like Get Right was winning 82 maps straight on LAN with 1,000 hours. So that's not. I can't hold that against Get Right.
There's also obviously like olofmeister, Fallen in his prime. Like there's a couple of players who had achievements that kind of outshine where ZywOo
Are you
is
actually
right now.
what about Cold Zero?
I just want to remind you guys.
I never
that
said Cold Zero.
Yeah,
when
I
Get
know.
Right was like going 87-0 and like shitting on kids on LAN, m0NESY was like 6 or 7 years old. So just feel good with that fact.
Yeah. So are we picking on a baby right now? Is that what you're saying? We're picking on a child?
No, I'm just wanting you to feel old.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay. Last Patreon question. Adam, is there any reason Stewie will find success as a long-term IGL?
I just love this question because you know what his perspective is on
I know.
it.
It's just
You can read
biased,
that
and
question.
he barely wrote anything, but it's just the most biased writing ever.
I feel like you just look at Stewie's resume, and obviously he hasn't done it like as the IGL, but it kind of just speaks for itself in terms of the success he's always had.
Yeah.
There's definitely some things that Stu will struggle with as an IGL, where like he gets too emotional and he doesn't really do things in like the most optimal way sometimes, and maybe he could be a bit more open-minded. But I still just feel like Stu is just kind of like a natural leader still. I mean, he's had success as an IGL in like his fucking rookie year with C9, like 2016 when they brought in Automatic and they won like the EPL LAN and shit like that with Stewie as the IGL. Like that's pretty like that. I don't understand how people can take that away from him. He obviously has some sort of IGL skills. I don't know if it's enough to be the top one team, but Stu is definitely, like, I would say he's definitely a good IGL. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think something that kind of is pervasive in the Counter-Strike space is that we consistently will like say, is this person successful when they have led a top 7 ranked team for years on end, and just because they haven't. The thing is, like, Stewie was no. God, I don't know why. Yeah, like with the other angle that I kind of compare this to is the Adren one, where people are like, "Oh, Adren's not a good coach." It's like, bro, he won the. I get the way that it looked to everybody was like they just headshotted everybody, but it's like no, there were strats, there were things they were doing, like you.
And there's also other things that coach has to do to like encourage an environment where people are like that comfortable and like clicking that well. Like that's.
Yes,
there's
dude.
All sorts of things.
Also, watch if you watch any of those Liquid games back, watch how slow some of their T-side rounds are. Like they're not just clicking everybody's head. Sometimes it's explosive when they hit a bomb site, but it's not like they were just running out A ramp on Mirage 15 rounds in a row.
They're slow defaulters. Like with Stu, they got a little bit more loose once he joins. But Liquid, like and then obviously it was with Dren, but it just made more sense to go more loose with Stewie joining because you're just adding that kind of player over Stewie. But one of the things Liquid was always good at was like defaulting and like disguising their defaults. They were always like spectacular at like disguising what they're doing and like adding layers to everything. Like they were always like one of the hardest teams for me to anti-strat. They kind of lost that towards maybe like 2020, 2021 or so. But around that era, like especially when they have it Dren, they've always pretty much been one of the harder teams for me to anti-strat and actually understand.
Yeah, I think the only thing with Stu for me is that I feel like he needs somebody else to like add extra elements to his calling. Like he can't become a top 3 IGL or anything like that. I think he can consistently lead a team, but he can't become like a number 1 best player. If that makes sense. Like I think he would need an additional, like Tarek, for example, on the old Cloud9. Those two combined could call pretty well as a unit, I would say. But it's not necessarily something that he can achieve a top tier level of to beat some of the best teams in the world alone.
I'm also kind of concerned with like people that just don't think X team is very good or whatever. There's like what metric are people always judging that off of? Is it like is it just their feeling or what? Because I'll just put this stat out there, like. Evil Geniuses had a better T-side round win percentage than Astralis at the Blast Spring groups. Like what like So is Stewie a better in-game leader than Glaive because he had a better round win percentage? Like, what? I just don't know the metric that people are always saying, and it's like people will say stuff like Tabson's such a good IGL, but it's like, dude, Liquid. I mean, the thing is, Liquid had a better T-side round win percentage than Big did at the last spring groups. Like, there's all these little things to me that just don't always like. I don't know where to draw the line for some people where they're like, what are they? What I don't know what they're taking. I just don't. Are they only taking wins of tournaments? Is that the only metric for people when they're judging in-game leaders? I just don't know where they're coming up with their idea that someone is or is not an in-game leader. Because sometimes you look at the strats and I think they look pretty good, and sometimes I watch like I watch G2 strats and I didn't think they looked all that good, but then they actually had a good T-side round win percentage. So do I just have to shove it up my own ass? Like, I don't know. Like, always, I don't know where people are always coming up with stuff. So, I think that's okay. That's it. We had one. So I saw one good sub question. I don't know if you guys saw any others, but my favorite was from Seven Spud.
We can just do it.
Let's just do it.
I didn't see any others, so
Let's just do it. So Seven Spud was the one sub question we're going to have for this episode. And his question was, I like this a lot. If you could make it so one NA player stayed in CS instead of going to Valorant, who would you have liked to see stay the most?
I would say Ethan, honestly. I think Ethan would easily still have the most potential out of all of these players that swapped. And the longest career potential in terms of where he was at.
Okay. Ethan would be a really good, solid overall player, yeah.
I had 3 names pop up in my head.
Okay.
And they were, then I'll pick one. Steel was one.
Oh, Steel was,
now that he's unbanned.
He was one of mine too.
Yeah.
Leaf was another.
Unbanned?
Well, he's not
unbanned
from majors.
Not from majors. Yeah.
He's unbanned from like IEM events and
True.
I thought he got
other stuff.
Oh yeah, I was thinking like the VAC ban shit, not
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Forget Steel. He's better off in Valorant, just so that he can actually play all the events, even though he
sure.
is now not going to play another event for like 3 months because Valorant format is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's between 2 names, and one name I thought of was Leaf because from the instant I saw this guy playing like main or like advanced, I watched like one demo of this guy when he was still in like main, and like I could just understand, like he just understood the game like so well. He just understood. He was literally hard entering for his team, and he had the best stats. He was literally hard anchoring, and he wasn't like playing for stats, and he just had the best stats because he was just so naturally talented at it. But I think the name I would actually go with is Vanity. I think that would be the most valuable piece for like NA to still have, just because Vanity, like he consistently grows as like an IGL. He has no fear. He's kind of like Stu in that regard, but he has a lot more. He's a lot better like handling people, I think, especially with when people fuck up and things like that. He's something he's gotten a lot better at. And Vanity's like kind of like Stu. I mean, Vanity just fucking seems to win wherever he goes. I mean, he's had success on United for times, but more so like he had success on Chaos, especially when he started to take over. Yeah. He had success on Chaos. He had success on version 1 in Valorant. He's having success on C9. Like if I could pick one name, I probably would pick Vanity.
You know what? That's actually a really good shot. I didn't even think of Vanity. I would change my pick to Vanity over Ethan, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty convincing.
It is definitely convincing. My pick is a little bit of a cheat, though. Because my pick is actually Nitro. I would have liked to see if Liquid held fast, didn't change their lineup, so Grim never comes up. Right? There's a lot of stuff that happens differently. I think if that team really gave it an honest try at LAN again, maybe then we could have seen something very different. I'm curious personally as to how that would have gone. A lot of people will probably be like, "What do you mean he was washed? Get him out!" But I mean, he's back now. If you just make it so that in between period never happened, who knows what's different?
These are all good. These are all good picks. I have it's hard to one up. I was kind of thinking Steel, but then also I think my reasoning for Steel was simply just that he was gonna be a good leader, like pass down information to other players. But then with you saying Vanity, it's almost like you're just getting kind of a new and improved Steel from that.
He was Steel's pupil in many ways, right? So you actually get like a part of Steel lives on in Vanity, but unfortunately they both went the same way, so whatever.
I would have personally wanted to see Marved. No, I'm just fucking.
Oh my
I'm
god!
just kidding.
Please end me.
No.
Can we get some real questions in here? This is an unreasonable question.
Oh, no, so bad, so bad. No, I can't. I really don't know if I can say anything better than I think. Yeah, Vanity takes it. Vanity takes it. That's
GG.
just
It's just
too good.
gotta be.
It's just what NA needs the most, you know? Like
Yeah.
a long-term IGL for the future. Instead,
Yeah.
we're bringing back. We got Stewie calling. We got Nitro fucking coming back after a year.
Yeah.
We got Daps coming back. Like,
Yeah.
it just would be nice to have like Imagine Vanity on a fucking EG or a Liquid at this point.
They'll be back.
Actually, I have a different answer. I just thought of this one. I want Potter back. I'd want Potter back on
There you go.
in Counter
What are
Strike.
these meme answers?
See, it's not even a
What
meme
is-
answer. I obviously don't, because she became a player for a while, and I wish she
Oh,
just.
I see what you mean?
Yeah, I wish she just stayed in the CS world. That is actually my answer.
That's a fair shot.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can say that could possibly one up the Vanity angle, which was very well done, Mix.
I'm really
Mix,
smart.
Mix been taking some dubs recently on the show. Like the MIBR one is huge, and then the Vanity call. Yeah, there's not much.
Those are the only dubs I get. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta take them where they come.
Gotta take them when I can get them. Where I can get them.
All right, I think we're good for shout outs. This has been a good show. We're already past the 2 hour mark for being live. That's pretty impressive. But yeah, let's do shout outs. Pronogo, what's your shout out?
Shout out R. Lewis Reports, who is getting hosted after this.
Okay, we're gonna throw a raid his direction after this.
You
No.
Stole my shout out right out of my mouth. Cool.
No,
cool,
okay,
cool,
Mix.
cool. No, really sick.
Mix's shout out's always really fast, so you could just mix.
Shout out to One Leaf.
Okay.
Just one.
Okay.
Yeah, One Leaf.
No, you have any writing coming up? Any articles?
No, not at the moment.
No big features.
Just, I mean, I'm
Wait.
writing one on North America, but that one's like a long-term one, so it's gonna take a while to finish.
NA
Probably not
okay.
by the next show or anything.
Shout out NA match fixing.
Reasonable.
Big shout out.
Absolutely reasonable.
No,
Cool.
no.
Shout out. You know what? I do have a shout out. Shout out ESIC for dropping their fourth quarter 2021 report that they definitely said was coming out before. the end of
Shout out
last
to
year.
ESIC
For sure.
ticket system.
Huge
Yeah.
shout out.
Shout out to that. Okay, I'll do my shout out. Shout out to We Play finals are coming back. They are sending us to Ukraine, even though the players aren't going to be there. That's my shout out. But it's going to be
Nice.
honestly, tune in, see who the next m0NESY is. It's going to be good. And shout out to the patrons. Be sure to subscribe on Patreon. You can type !Patreon in the Twitch chat, and it's also always in the YouTube description. Pay these guys bills. Sub to the Patreon. Get your questions answered. And that should be it. So peace out, guys. This has been another.
You guys don't tell I'm gonna be homeless soon.
Yeah.
No
Look at his
pressure.
lights. His lights got turned off. He can't even pay for the electric bill. Okay. All
It's rough
right.
out here. See ya.
All right, see you guys.